Chapter 25:13. The fake emperor, Guojing, was deposed and sent to the heavenly prison. He was waiting for the imperial court to publicly sentence him to death. The Jia family participated in the rebellion. Jia Zhen, Jia Lian, and Jia Rong died in the battle. Consort Jia, who was revived from the cold palace, was bestowed with white silk. The rest of the men in the Jia residence were stripped of their official titles. The Jia residence was sealed, and the Grand View Garden was searched. Shi Hao from the Shi family died in battle. Shi Miyuan was sent to the heavenly prison. A series of officials from the Shi family were dismissed, and their properties were searched. Someone reported that Qin Kuching from the Jia family and Wei Rulin from the Shi family were the remaining descendants of Chai Rong. Hence, the fact that the two families rebelled was confirmed. It was very likely that they would be executed. On the contrary, the officials from the Shui family had a meteoric rise. There was news that the two young ladies of the Shui family, Shui Baochai and Shui Baoqin, were going to be married to Prince Beijing as concubines. A series of news spread to Guling courtyard. Song Qingshu was shocked. It was really a thunderous move. Everything happened too fast. He had been faking his death for some time. These days, he had been hiding in the secret underground chamber of the courtyard. Every day, he was accompanied by beauties. He was busy arranging everything. When he had nothing to do, he had been living a comfortable life. It seems that the Shui family has long sought refuge with Prince Beijing. This time, they pushed the Jia family and Shi family to the front, and he has come back with a plan. Song Qingshu sighed. Actually, it is not surprising. Previously, Prince Beijing hid in the dark and was able to find out so many things about you. He must have borrowed the power of the Imperial City Department. The Imperial City Department has always been under the control of the Shui family, the yellow-shirt lady said. She was very clear about the power structure in Lin. Song Qingshu grunted. Actually, just relying on the Imperial City Department might not be able to find so much information. Prince Beijing still controls the intelligence network of the Island of Heroes. That is why he could find so much information. Every country had their own intelligence network. The Southern Song Dynasty's Imperial City Department, the Qin Kingdom's Sticky Stick Department, the Jin Kingdom's Laundry Department, Liao's Secret Intelligence Department. But in terms of the details of the intelligence network, they were probably not as good as the Island of Heroes. After all, over the past few decades, the Island of Heroes had used the name of rewarding the good and punishing the evil to control too many low-level gangs. They had also used this to build a terrifying intelligence network. It had been Jia Shidao's painstaking effort for many years. Unfortunately, he had been defeated and killed in the Battle of Wutang Mountain. As the king of Zhao, Duke Beijing had been harboring evil intentions for a long time. She had seized the opportunity to take over most of the forces on the Isle of Heroes. When he appeared in the Jia family as Jia Bayu, Jia Shidao's remaining confidant, Liao Yingzhong, had complained to him. Zhao had taken the opportunity to win over most of Prime Minister Jia's secret forces. All right, how did Guojing and the others lose so badly? What about the sweeper monk and the others? Compared to the Jia and Shi families, Song Qingshu was more concerned about the situation of these people. When Reniying heard this, she replied, "In the battle that night in the palace, the sweeping monk perished, and even Fu Yaong died in battle. Of the other three, only one escaped, and Wei Rulin also died. The Vulture Palace also suffered heavy losses. The Heavenly Mountain Tong Lao was seriously injured and captured. Meilon, Zhu Ju were also captured in order to save her. Fu Mini seemed to have disappeared in the chaos of the battle." Song Qingshu instantly frowned. In such a short time, so many people who used to be familiar with had died. Even though he had a strong mind, he was still shocked. However, he was more concerned about something else. Even the sweeping monk is dead. Although he was seriously injured, he was, after all, a great grandmaster. How could he die so easily? I was also shocked when I heard the news. Who else in the world do you think can kill him? Ren Yingying frowned slightly. I can't think of anyone. Song Qingshu shook his head. The sweeping monk is good at both Buddhism and Taoism. His cultivation is unfathomable. He is no weaker than immortal Zhang of Wu-Tang Mountain. In the whole world, he is in the top 5 or even the top 3. Even if he was injured, he should be able to keep his life. Ren Yingying hurriedly reminded him, "This is a variable. You must be careful." Song Qingshu grunted in acknowledgement. His mood of watching the show became more cautious. At this moment, someone came to report that there was a girl outside the courtyard seeking an audience with the Prince of Qi. No matter what was said, she refused to leave. "She wants to see me?" Song Qingshu was somewhat surprised. Could it be that she doesn't know that I'm already dead? I've already told her, but she still insists. The subordinate replied. Ren Yingying and the yellow-robed girl immediately looked at him strangely. What kind of debt of love did she incur? Song Qingshu mused. Did that person report his name? She is the eldest miss of the Shi clan, Shi Shangyun. Song Qingshu's heart thumped. Quickly invite her in. He then said to Ren Yingying, Yingying, go receive her first. See what her intentions are. Ren Yingying grunted and hurriedly left the secret room. Song Qingshu went to a certain part of the wall. Here, there was a secret hole that allowed him to see what was happening in the room outside. Shi Shangyun was quickly brought in. At this moment, she was no longer in high spirits. Her hair was disheveled, and her clothes were torn in several places. Her face was stained with many stains. It was unknown whether it was dust or dry blood. Miss Shi should be a wanted criminal. What business do you have with her? Ren Yingying asked. Shi Shangyun bit her lips. I want to see the Prince of Qi. Ren Yingying indifferently replied. He's not here. Everything is the same as what I said. Shi Shangyun shook her head. Everyone says that he's dead, but I don't believe them. I know that he's definitely still alive. Ren Yingying revealed a look of astonishment. Why do you think so? Shi Shangyun blankly shook her head. I don't know. In any case, I believe that he's definitely still alive. If he really is dead, I won't have any motivation to continue living. After she finished speaking, she squatted on the ground and started crying. Ren Yingying looked at the wall behind her with a strange expression. She wondered when this fellow had hooked up with Miss Shi. What business do you have with me? Song Qingshu walked out of the secret passage. He was also very curious because he knew that the other party was not like this because she fell in love with him. Hearing his voice, Shi Shangyun's body trembled. She suddenly raised her head. When she saw that it was really him, she was extremely excited. That's great. You're really still alive. That's great. Feeling the strange gazes of Ren Yingying and the yellow-robed woman, Song Qingshu sighed. What business do you have with me? Quickly say it. Don't make it seem like I've abandoned you. Shi Shangyun plopped down on her knees in front of him. I beg you to save the Shi family. I beg you to help me take revenge. Prince Beijing went back on his words. He killed Wei Ruolin. Sob. Song Qingshu shook his head. Miss Shi, why do you think I should help you? Shi Shangyun bit her red lips. As long as you can help me, I will be your servant from now on. I will be at your disposal. Song Qingshu sighed. Miss Shi, don't overestimate your charm. Do you think that a woman can really play such an important role when we are in this position? Shi Shangyun replied, I know I'm not enough, but you will definitely be interested in the thing in my hands. What is it? Song Qingshu didn't care. Shi Shangyun said, previously when we started the rebellion, Prince Beijing had been secretly with us. However, he went back on his word and suddenly betrayed us. We were caught off guard and suffered such a big loss. However, we still have some account books and catalogs with him in our hands, which can prove that he was involved in it before. The yellow-robed woman, who was watching the show, had a slight change in her expression. Previously, when she saw the rebels and traitors suffering, she was still a little pleased. Although Prince Beijing's means were despicable, he was still a member of the Zhao family after all. He could be considered to have recovered the country. However, if he was involved in the whole process from the beginning, then he was the culprit of all this. The nature was naturally different. Song Qingshu was not surprised and said, Where is the evidence? Let me see it. Shi Shangyun hesitated for a moment and finally took out an account book from her arms and handed it to him. I believe in Prince Qi's character. He will definitely not do something like burning the bridge after crossing it. In the end, the account book still had the warmth of a young girl. Song Qing casually flipped through it a few times and put it away. This thing can only be regarded as circumstantial evidence. Now that Prince Beijing is in control of the court, I'm afraid it is not realistic to use this to bring him down. In fact, this thing was still quite useful. This world paid attention to a good reason. He had already arranged everything in secret except for this name. However, the weight of the evidence provided by Shi Shangyun was still a little lacking. It was difficult to directly hammer Prince Beijing to death. Shi Shangyun looked disappointed. Suddenly, she thought of something and said hurriedly, "You can also look for Sister Bao. She has always been suspicious of Bao Yu's death. My father once mentioned that he suspected that Bao Yu's death was related to Prince Beijing. If you can persuade her to betray us, she, who is from the Imperial City Guards, will definitely have the evidence you want." Song Qing said in a deep voice, "But I heard that she is about to marry Prince Beijing. She might even become the imperial concubine in the future. How could she betray Prince Beijing?" Shi Shangyun shook her head. "You don't understand her feelings for Bao Yu. The reason why she agreed to marry was completely out of consideration for the family's interests. However, once she knows that Prince Beijing killed Bao Yu, she will never agree." Song Qing thought for a moment and said in a deep voice, "All right, I will look for Shui Baochai. If it really succeeds, I will try my best to take care of your Shi family. However, you should not have too much hope. After all, your Shi family participated in the rebellion. This is a serious crime that will result in the execution of 9 generations. I dare not guarantee whether you can keep it or not. With your words, I am relieved. We know that we have committed a grave sin. As long as we can keep our bloodline, we will be satisfied." Shi Shangyun's tears streamed down her face. This should not be a big problem. Song Qing nodded his head. "Thank you, Brother Song." Shi Shangyun finally revealed a smile on her face. Then, her body softened and she fainted on the ground. Ren Ying went over to check and said, "It should be due to excessive fatigue and mental exhaustion. She will be fine after a period of rest." Song Qing acknowledged her and asked her to help take care of Bao Yu while he made a trip to the Imperial City Guards. Ren Ying was a little worried. Could be a trap set by them. Song Qing shook his head. "Don't worry, I will be careful. Moreover, Shi Hao and Wei Rulin are both dead. The Shi family will not put in so much effort to put on a show." Ren Ying smiled. "That's true." Song Qing quietly left Galing Courtyard and went all the way to the city center. Just as he was wondering if Shui Baochai was in the Imperial City Guards or the Shui family, he suddenly saw a beautiful figure in the Imperial City Guard's uniform walking on the street with a heavy heart. Who else could it be but Shui Baochai? It really was effortless to find her. Song Qing did not waste any time. He immediately touched her and sealed her acupoints. Then, he carried her to an abandoned courtyard severally away. "Who are you?" Shui Baochai was extremely shocked. Although she had been a little distracted and had not been on guard, her opponent was able to subdue her in an instant and bring her here. His martial arts were too terrifying. This time, Song Qing did not conceal himself. He directly came in front of her and unsealed her acupoints. With his martial arts, she would not be able to escape even if she wanted to. "Prince Qi, you're not dead?" Shui Baochai's mouth was wide open, and her face was full of shock. "Miss, aren't you too cruel? You want me dead so much after not seeing me for a long time?" Song Qing laughed mockingly. "I remember that we used to have a good time when we met. I didn't mean that." Shui Baochai looked a little embarrassed, but her heart was in turmoil. If Prince Qi was not dead, then the Shui family and Duke Beijing would be in danger. "This time, I came to you mainly to ask for your help. Help me find evidence of Duke Beijing's crime." Song Qing went straight to the point. Shui Baochai frowned slightly. "Although I would like to pretend to agree to your request, Prince Qi should know that I have an engagement with Duke Beijing. How can I help you to deal with him? But I remember that you like Jia Baoyu. Have you changed your love so quickly?" Song Qing asked. A trace of pain flashed in Shui Baochai's eyes. "Baoyu is dead. Don't you want to know who killed him?" Song Qing looked at her quietly. "Of course, it's the guy who pretended to be him and went to Xixia to find a spouse." Shue Baochai said bitterly. Thinking of how she was intimate with that person along the way and how she was with her enemy, she felt extremely painful. Song Qingshu sighed and said in Jia Baoyu's voice, "Sister Bao, do you hate me so much?" Hearing that familiar voice, Shue Baochai trembled and then looked at the man in front of her in disbelief. The plot is really coming to an end. Don't be surprised if it suddenly ends one day. Chapter 25:14. It's you. Shue Baochai looked at him in shock and began to speak incoherently. Song Qingshu understood her words. Yes, it's me. It's you. Shue Baochai clenched her teeth, pulled out her long sword, and stabbed it at him angrily. With a flick of Song Qingshu's finger, the sword in her hand slipped out of her grip and fell to the ground, the blade still trembling. I know my kung fu is far inferior to yours, so I can't take revenge. If you want to kill me, then kill me. Shue Baochai's face turned pale, and she raised her snow-white and slender neck in resignation. Song Qingshu said lightly, I think you misunderstood. I didn't kill Jia Baoyu. He naturally knew why she was so angry, so he went straight to the point. Who else could it be if not you? Shue Baochai said bitterly, you killed him and then disguised yourself as him, sneaked into the Jia family, and used the information to deal with them. Finally, the Jia family, which was at its peak, was defeated. What was more hateful was that he disguised himself as Jia Baoyu and caused her to throw herself into his arms. Of course, she cannot say this out loud. Song Qingshu shook his head. Miss Shue, you are a smart person. You should remember whether I returned to the Jia mansion as Jia Baoyu before or after the battle on Mount Wudong. Shue Baochai was stunned, and then remembered that he returned to the Jia mansion after the battle. At that time, the Jia mansion was doomed to be destroyed, and there was indeed no need for him to spy for information. But she snorted, Who knows what you are thinking? Everyone knows that Prince Qi is a romantic and elegant man. Maybe he has his eyes on the beautiful madams and young ladies in the Grandview Garden. Song Qingshu sighed. Am I so unbearable in Miss Shue's eyes? Well, have I ever bullied any madam or young lady? Take you, for example. You were defenseless against me at that time. Did I do anything to you? You didn't do anything to me. Shue Baochai blushed, thinking that she hugged, and even kissed him at that time. Ahem, Song Qingshu coughed awkwardly. It's mainly because I behaved too strangely, and I was worried that you would see through me. At least I didn't spoil your innocence. Shue Baochai's face alternated between green and red, but the other party really didn't go any further. Song Qingshu then said, I have another purpose in pretending to be Jia Baoyu. Someone else killed him. Shue Baochai sneered. If you didn't kill him, how could you disguise yourself so well? If I remember correctly, the Prince of Qi should have never met Jia Baoyu before. Who said I haven't seen it? Song Qingshu replied. Miss Shue was in the Imperial City Department, so you should know that I was poisoned by the golden ripple flower back then. Shue Baochai nodded. Back then, this matter had caused a huge uproar. Everyone thought that he was dead, and he had indeed disappeared for many months. Who knew that he would suddenly appear out of nowhere, and his martial arts had even improved further. Everyone was guessing what had happened to him during that period of time. Song Qingshu explained, At that time, I was on the run and found a passenger ship. Then, by chance, I was kidnapped by the people of the Isle of Heroes and brought to the island. He roughly told her what had happened at that time, including how he had witnessed Jia Baoyu being killed in front of him. Of course, he ignored the erotic details of how Qi Feng had forced the poison out of his body. After finally learning the truth about Jia Baoyu's death, Shue Baochai burst into tears. My Baoyu, so you died on the Isle of Heroes without a sound. Who was that man in black? Shue Baochai looked at him hurriedly. Song Qingshu didn't answer her directly. Instead, he told her what had happened on Wutang Mountain. Jia Sherdao has been thinking about this. At first, he suspected that Jiao Yin and Wang Shifeng killed him for the inheritance of the family. However, Jiao Yin and Wang Shifeng didn't have the ability to do so, so he suspected that it was Jia Shi. So, he killed Jia Shi on Wutang Mountain. However, What Jiashi said before he died showed that he didn't do it. I can also testify to this, because the person who killed him was young, not an old man like Jiashi. Then who was it? Shui Baochai was extremely shocked. There were many things she didn't know before. No matter how powerful the Imperial City Guards were, only a few people knew what had happened on the Isle of Heroes and Wu-Tang Mountain. In fact, you already have a guess in your heart. Why ask when you already know the answer? Song Qing-shu sighed. To determine who the murderer is, there is a simple rule: whoever benefits the most. But I think you are very likely to be the murderer. Shui Baochai was actually a little shaken, but she still said it. I have witnesses. Let's not talk about Zhou Zhuo, who was present at the time. After all, she is my wife, so her testimony doesn't count, Song Qingshu said. In addition, there is Qi Fong, the young lady of the Wan family. You can ask her for proof. Who doesn't know the great charm of the King of Qi? That young lady of the Wan family has been with you for a long time. She has probably been conquered by you long ago. How can I believe her words? Shui Baochai said. Song Qingshu smiled bitterly and said, if you put it like that, then I can't do anything about it. After all, we have been together for so long. Why would you rather believe someone else than me? Shui Baochai bit her lip. Because our relationship was built on a lie. How can I believe what you say? If you don't have any other evidence, then there is no need to talk about this anymore. Either let me go or kill me. Song Qingshu suddenly felt a headache coming on. This woman's stubbornness was truly troublesome. She must have been deceived so badly by me pretending to be Jia Baoyu that she wouldn't believe anything I say now. There is one more person. Song Qingshu's mind suddenly lit up. Who? Shui Baochai hurriedly asked. Jia Shidao's chief advisor, Liao Yingzhong, Song Qingshu said. He is the closest to Jia Shidao, so he must know the most details. Last time, when I sneaked into the Jia family as Jia Baoyu, he complained to me that Duke Beijing took the opportunity to take away most of Jia Shidao's subordinates. Shui Baochai's expression suddenly changed. She hurriedly said, take me to the suburbs in the south of the city. Why? Song Qingshu was stunned. I received news that Liao Yingzhong is hiding in a residential house in the suburbs in the south of the city. The killers of the Imperial City Department are rushing to execute him, Shui Baochai said quickly. Song Qingshu's expression also changed. He didn't dare to delay any longer. He grabbed her waist and rushed to the south of the city. Shui Baochai blushed. She was about to say something, but she suddenly fell into a trance for a moment. He had held her like this in the Western Xia. This feeling was so familiar. Song Qingshu didn't have time to think about this. Liao Yingzhong was a very important person. Even if he didn't want to testify, he was still Jia Shidao's chief advisor. An hour later, in a ruined temple in the suburbs, the killers of the Imperial City Department were lying on the ground. Liao Yingzhong, who was wounded all over, looked at the man in front of him with a complicated expression. I didn't expect you to save me in the end. I think Mr. Liao knows that there is no eternal enemy in the world. The man was Song Qingshu. Fortunately, he arrived in time at the last moment. Liao, Yingzhong nodded. Yes, now only you can help us take revenge. However, his expression suddenly became strange. He looked at Shui Baochai and asked, why is she here? Song Qingshu told him why he came, and Liao Yingzhong replied, I see. I have been investigating the whereabouts of the young master. I suspected many people before, but now I am sure that the murderer who killed the young master must be Duke Beijing. The most famous messengers of the Island of Heroes are Zhang San and Li Si, but they also have Zhao De and Qianer, and Zhao De is Duke Beijing. When a young master was killed, Duke Beijing shouldn't have been on the island, but later I found out that he was neither in Lin and nor in Shanin's mansion. During that time, his whereabouts disappeared. Obviously, he sneaked into the Island of Heroes to assassinate the young master. That's why he had no alibi. But this is only your side of the story. Now that you and Duke Beijing have a deep grudge, it is inevitable that you will deliberately lie to him. Shui Baochai frowned. Liao Yingzhong looked at her deeply. Miss Bao, I've watched you and Baoyu grow up. I've watched you two grow up together. I'll say something disrespectful, but I've always regarded you as my son and future daughter-in-law from the bottom of my heart. Why would I lie to you about this? If you still don't believe me, I can take you to see the relevant records. But now that the Jia's mansion has been raided, it may be difficult to find these records. There's no need for that. Shui Baochai's expression changed. In fact, she had already believed it. As a member of the Imperial City Guards, she had the ability to analyze. She just didn't want to believe this possibility. What can I do now? Our Shui family is completely tied to Duke Beijing. How can I let the whole family die because of my personal grudge? Actually, it is easy to solve this problem, Liao Yingzhong suddenly said. 877 Good Book Network, how to solve it? Shui Baochai was stunned. Liao Yingzhong said, the basis of the alliance between your Shui family and Duke Beijing is that you and Shui Baoqin will be his concubine. Since Duke Beijing can marry, why can't Prince Qi marry? Song Qingshu thought to himself, I can't tell that this guy has the characteristics of a matchmaker. Shui Baochai was ashamed and angry. How can this change suddenly? Besides, I don't want to marry anyone. Liao Yingzhong said in a deep voice, Miss Shui, you have to think it through. From a woman's point of view, Prince Qi is better than Duke Beijing in all aspects. From the point of view of family interests, since Prince Qi is not dead, all the plans of Duke Beijing are destined to be in vain. It is not too late for your Shui family to change now. If you wait until Duke Beijing is defeated to change, I am afraid it will be too late. Shui Baochai was stunned. The last sentence of the other party hit the nail on the head. Now, the Shui family still had the capital to bargain. If they waited until the dust settled, everything would be too late. However, she was still a little hesitant. We may not lose. Liao Yingzhong sneered, I have always had a guess. Now that I see that Prince Qi is safe and sound, I am more certain that he has been luring the snake out of the hole, waiting for Duke Beijing to jump out. Now it is time to close the net. The only thing he lacks now is the title of a master, but I have this title. I have the evidence that Duke Beijing colluded with Pan Ren and Pan Bing to coerce the crown prince to rebel and die. Is this true? Song Qingshu did not expect there would be such a surprise. With this and the account book provided by Shi Shangyun, he could justifiably kill Duke Beijing. Of course it is true. Liao Yingzhong gritted his teeth and said, when I noticed that Duke Beijing secretly bribed the former subordinates of the Prime Minister, I began to guard against him. This time, the Jia family was incited to help Guo Jing rebel, and he contributed a lot. Unfortunately, Jia Zhen and Jia Yan were too stupid. I knew that they had been blinded by interests, so I gave up persuading them. Instead, I made early preparations and found the relevant evidence. After that, he sighed deeply, looked at Shui Baochai and said, this time, your Shui family has hurt the Jia family very badly. If it were not for the fact that I have watched you grow up and that you have such a good relationship with Baoyu, I would not want to say so much to you. This is the last chance. You must seize it. Shui Baochai bit her red lips tightly, but her beautiful face was full of struggle. She looked at Song Qingshu and said, you really did not kill Baoyu? Song Qingshu shook his head and said, I think you have your own judgment in your heart. It is useless for me to say more. Shui Baochai hesitated for a moment and suddenly asked, then what do you mean by this matter? As soon as she finished speaking, her face became as red as if it was covered with rouge. Song Qingshu smiled slightly and said, Sister Bao is an outstanding beauty. What's more, you took good care of me on the way to Xixia. Shui Baochai was very embarrassed and said, that is not for you, Song Qingshu said. Anyway, I am very impressed by your gentleness and thoughtfulness. So as long as Miss agrees, I will naturally ask for it. Shui Baochai suddenly lowered her head and said, it is not because I like you, but for the family. Song Qingshu went directly to hold her hand and said, you will like me. Shui Baochai was shocked and subconsciously wanted to withdraw her hand, but it was held tightly. Her heart was beating wildly, and she thought that this guy's confident look was really asking for a beating. However, compared to Princess Beijing, this guy was more pleasing to the eye. Liao Yingzhong, who was at the side, secretly sighed. If only Baoyu was still here. Shui Baochai suddenly thought of something and said, but I can't represent the family. My father may not agree. Song Qing-shu smiled faintly and said, Your father is a smart man. He will agree. At the same time, he secretly added in his heart that if he did not agree, he would beat him until he agreed. Next, Song Qing-shu quietly brought Liao Yingzhong and Xue Baochai to the Xue family. The Xue family did not know what had happened. They only knew that at the beginning, the master was furious. The masters in the residence, the red dot of the Central Plains, and even Xue Yi, who was recuperating in seclusion, rushed to the study. However, it did not take long for it to fall into silence. In the end, when the master came out, his expression was calm. There was no sign of anger. He was just as calm as an ancient well. He gave out orders one after another. At the same time, he secretly summoned some of his trusted subordinates for a long time. On the second day of the court meeting, they began to discuss about the new emperor. Although the fake emperor had been deposed, Zhao Go had already died in the previous internal strife. The crown prince had also died. Prince Yi had also died in the Battle of Mount Wudong. The two successors that Zhao Go had secretly prepared were both dead. Moreover, he was infertile and had no children. For a moment, everyone began to discuss who to make as their enemy. Some people in the court suggested a few grandmasters who were closer to Zhao Go's bloodline. However, they were all rejected by others with various reasons. Until someone suddenly suggested that Princess Beijing, Zhao Shicheng, was the son of Emperor Taizong's great-great-grandson, Zhao Zhongming, the 10th daughter of Emperor Renzong, and the grandnephew of the great princess of Qinlu. Moreover, he had played a decisive role in eliminating the rebellion of the later Zhou dynasty. Of course, Prince Beijing immediately stepped out and expressed humbly that he was not suitable. After all, his bloodline was far from that of the emperor. However, he could not stop the various officials from quoting the classics to show that he had made great contributions and was the best candidate for the new emperor. All the officials in the court were smart. They could all see that this was a self-directed show. Although they were somewhat dissatisfied, now that the emperor and the crown prince were dead, Prince Shi was also dead. Prince Beijing had long taken control of the situation. No one dared to jump out and undermine him. Just as Duchess Beijing was about to become the new emperor by default, Shuiji, who was in charge of political affairs, suddenly came out to accuse Duchess Beijing of dozens of crimes. He said that everything that had happened before was part of his conspiracy. The Jia and Shi clans rebelled, helped Guojing ascend the throne, and murdered the emperor and the crown prince. As soon as he spoke, the audience was in an uproar. The things that he revealed were too shocking. Although some people had secretly speculated before, they were limited to speculations and did not dare to think about it. Now that Shuiji had taken a lead, a series of other officials also came out to accuse Prince Beijing. They presented all kinds of evidence, and the process was extremely detailed. Everyone immediately believed them. The only strange thing was that the Xue family was not on the same side as Prince Beijing. Why did he suddenly change sides? Could it be that Shuiji wanted to become the emperor himself? But this was clearly impossible. Shuiji was also in a difficult situation. Since he had agreed to cooperate with Song Qing-shu, he naturally had to prove his loyalty. Moreover, Liao Yingzhong had also analyzed with him that the Xue family had participated in those previous events. If he wanted to ensure the safety of the Xue family, he could only completely push all the blame to Prince Beijing. Therefore, he had to take the risk and take the lead to make trouble. Prince Beijing was shocked and angry. He never thought that Shuiji would suddenly betray him. However, now that it had come to this, he could not care about the reason behind it. Instead, he had to settle the current chaotic situation as soon as possible. Guards, Shuiji is misleading the public with his words. Take it down. Shuiji was not in a hurry. Since the founding of the Song dynasty, no official has ever been convicted because of his words. Prince Beijing, as a descendant of the founding emperor, do you not even know this rule? Prince Beijing snorted. Now that the world is in chaos, we naturally need to punish severely. Our Song dynasty has finally calmed down, but you are misleading the public with your words. I don't know who has bewitched you, but it is obvious that you want to overthrow the Song dynasty. How can I just sit back and do nothing? Shueji directly scolded. Zhao Shicheng, you killed the emperor and the crown prince just to usurp the throne. You still say that you represent the Song dynasty. Doesn't your conscience hurt? Prince Beijing's face twitched. He directly waved his hand, and a large group of guards came in to arrest Shueji. Shueji's expression changed slightly. Although the Shui family was powerful, they were all in the official circles. They did not have much power in the palace. At this moment, another group of soldiers rushed in to protect him. Wang Ziding stood out. Prince Beijing, we can only know if what Shueji said is true or not after investigating. Now that you are in such a hurry, are you planning to silence us? Seeing him jump out, how could Prince Beijing not know that he had fallen into a trap? Shueji had always been working with him. If he really investigated, he would definitely not be able to hide it. Now that things had come to this, he could only make up his mind. Guards, someone is causing trouble in the court. Arrest them all. If they resist, kill them. How could he not know that even if he settled everything today, the rumors would spread? The reputation of the virtuous king that he had painstakingly built up for decades would be ruined. However, he could not care about this now. If he could not suppress everything in time, he would be doomed eternally. Are you the only one? Wang Ziding sneered. Come, arrest this traitor who killed the emperor and usurped the throne. If he resists, kill him. Wang Ziding was in charge of the front palace. Previously, he had been watching from the sidelines, so people had ignored his existence. Now that he had come out, everyone realized that his subordinates were no less powerful than Prince Beijing's. The soldiers of both sides quickly clashed, and it was difficult to determine the victor for a while. Only the civil officials were left shivering in fear. Prince Beijing sneered and said, Wang Ziteng, Shueji, do you think you can defeat me like this? Have you ever wondered why Guojing had so many experts under him, but I managed to suppress them in such a short time? Chapter 25:15. Tisk TSK. Little Chung, you still have to rely on me in the end. A burst of strange laughter resounded in the main hall, and the originally magnificent imperial palace suddenly became ghastly, causing everyone's heart to skip a beat when they heard it. A gray shadow flashed in. Along the way, a lot of imperial guards collapsed to the ground before they could even react. The people at the side looked over in shock and discovered that there was a red dot on each of their foreheads. It was obvious that their brains had been pierced by the opponent's real chi. Is he a man or a ghost? Shueji and the others looked at each other in shock. Only Wang Ziding was relatively calm. After all, they had met on Mount Wudong before. Patriarch Sunflower. Not bad, young one. You recognize me. An old eunuch appeared on top of the censer in front of the dragon throne. He seemed weightless, and his appearance caused the temperature in the hall to drop by several degrees. Patriarch Sunflower, do you have to be so eerie every time you come out? It makes people uncomfortable. With a light snort, another woman in white slowly walked out from the inner chamber behind the dragon throne. Although some details showed that she was not young, she still had a graceful air about her. Lin Xiaoying, if I hadn't been a eunuch since I was young, I would have taken you as my wife no matter what. Patriarch Sunflower chuckled. The woman in white's expression turned cold. Are you forcing me to fight you? It's just a joke. Why are you so angry? Patriarch Sunflower chuckled and changed the subject. Do you want to deal with these people, or should I? Lin Xiaoying ignored him and looked at Prince Beijing. We had an agreement before. We'll only help you deal with the sweeping monk, not your hired thugs. Prince Beijing smiled apologetically. Senior, you're too serious. I have great respect for both of you. How could I treat you as my hired thugs? Patriarch Sunflower smiled. Little Chung, since you've served me well all these years, I'll help you get rid of them. You don't have to beg this woman anymore. As soon as he finished speaking, he turned into a blur and grabbed at Shueji with one hand and Wang Ziding with the other. Shueji did not know martial arts, so he could not resist at all. Wang Ziding's martial arts were not weak, but when his opponent grabbed him, he found that he was in the same situation as Shueji, unable to resist at all. It was at this moment that Patriarch Sunflower's smiling face suddenly changed. He turned back to his original spot and looked at the entrance of the great hall with vigilance. I was wondering who killed the sweeping monk. So was you too. A tall and handsome figure slowly walked in from the main hall. The people in the hall finally saw his face clearly, and they all cried out in surprise. It's King Chi. King Chi is not dead. Ha ha! King Chi's martial arts are unparalleled. How could he die so easily? Duke Beijing's face changed. It's actually you. How is it possible? Song Qingshu smiled. You schemed against me. Are you disappointed to see that I'm not dead? Duke Beijing was a very smart person. She immediately reacted. So Xueji and Wang Ziding were all ordered by you. No wonder, Song Qingshu sighed. I don't like to hear the word instigate. It was clearly you who deliberately incited the Jia and Shi families to aid the Guo family in their rebellion, causing the death of the crown prince and the emperor coveting the throne. Why do you make me look like a conspirator now? Nonsense. Duke Beijing did not expect that one moment he was at the peak of his life, and the next moment he would fall from the clouds. The huge contrast made her mind a mess. I have enough evidence here. I'm sure all the lords in the hall can tell the truth. Song Qingshu said calmly. Someone had already sorted out all kinds of information and handed it to the ministers in the hall. Almost everyone had a copy. These ministers were all smart people. After reading through the information, how could they not know what was going on? They all pointed at Duke Beijing, and some even cursed her in a bad temper. Duke Beijing's face suddenly flashed with a trace of ruthlessness. In that case, no one will leave here alive today. With his order, another large group of soldiers rushed in. He was still worried. He hurriedly said to Ancestor Sunflower and Lin Chaoying, Seniors, please take care of Song Qingshu. Now, only the two of you can deal with him if you join forces. Lin Chaoying frowned. I said, I'm not your fighter. Prince Beijing said in a deep voice, Senior Lin, even if you don't do it for me, think about Daiyu. Now that the Lin family is completely tied to me, if I fall, the Lin family will be doomed eternally. Hearing his words, Lin Chaoying frowned. After a long time, she sighed and said to Song Qingshu, Song boy, I owe you a favor on Wu-Tang Mountain. Today you can go. I won't make things difficult for you. Duke Beijing was anxious. Senior. Lin Chaoying ignored him. She just looked at Song Qingshu quietly. Song Qingshu smiled. How is Senior Chongyang now? Wang Chongyang had been fatally injured in the battle on Wu-Tang Mountain. No one knew how long he could live. Lin Chaoying had a worried look on her face. His injuries were too severe. Although I tried everything I could to heal him, I only managed to prolong his life for half a year. Now he is in eternal rest in the tomb of the living dead. Song Qingshu sighed. Senior Chongyang is a teacher and a friend to me. I didn't expect that last time we parted, it would be forever. Lin Chaoying was obviously very touched. At that time, I planned to go with him, but I thought that he couldn't die without getting his revenge. So I came back. It's a pity that the monk's martial arts are too high. I may not be his match in a one-on-one fight, let alone kill him. Fortunately, a good opportunity appeared. Speaking of which, I have to thank you. If you hadn't injured him first, even if Patriarch Sunflower and I joined hands, it wouldn't have been so easy to kill him. Among the great grandmasters, except for Song Qingshu, the gap between them was actually very small. It might be easy to determine the winner, but it was difficult to kill them. The success of this revenge was due to all kinds of favorable factors. If it happened again, it might not be so smooth. For a moment, Song Qingshu's expression was a bit complicated. When he first came to this world, he was at his most desperate. At that time, his meridians were broken and all hope was lost. Fortunately, he was guided by the monk and stepped into Jianghu. Now, he was partly responsible for the monk's death. It was really fate that made fools of people. At this time, Patriarch Sunflower's shrill voice sounded. Little Song, we are old acquaintances. It doesn't look good if we fight. Why don't you seek refuge with Prince Beijing? With your ability, you can continue to be King Qi's Minister of Peace. Wouldn't that be a happy ending? Song Qingshu also laughed. Since we are old acquaintances, why don't you help me instead of him? Patriarch Sunflower smiled awkwardly. All these years, little Chung has been very filial to me. If I leave him, it will be a bit embarrassing. Song Qingshu sighed. So you have no choice but to fight? Patriarch Sunflower shook his head. You alone can't beat the two of us together. You should listen to Lin Chaoying's advice. Leave quickly. For the sake of our old friendship, I won't make things difficult for you. Song Qingshu didn't answer. Instead, he looked at Lin Chaoying. Senior Lin, now that you have taken revenge, why do you still work for Prince Beijing? You should know that the emperor and the crown prince were killed by him. Lin Chaoying answered. Our Lin family is too close to him. We can't get away. Moreover, Daiyu has an engagement with him. I can't just sit by and watch something happen to him. Song Qingshu was taken aback. Lin Daiyu actually had an engagement with Duchess Beijing, but then he thought it was normal. No matter how much she liked Jia Baoyu was already dead. These years, Prince Beijing had been trying to win him over, and the Lin family had been very close to him. Zhao Shicheng could be considered a master of both the pen and the sword, and he might become the emperor. It was normal for Lin Ruhai to bet on him. After all, if he succeeded, the Lin family could replace the four great families and become the most powerful family in the Southern Song dynasty. Speaking of the ending of Dream of the Red Chamber, there was a saying that Lin Daiyu married Prince Beijing as a concubine. The power of fate was really strong. Wang Zidong, who was at the side, was secretly worried for Song Qingshu. Now that the Lin family and Prince Beijing were tied together, he had to face two great grandmasters alone. He was afraid that he would be in danger. Even a powerful figure like the sweeping monk was killed by the two of them. At this moment, Song Qingshu suddenly said, Senior Lin, why don't you consider me? I think that my looks, martial arts, and status are not worse than Prince Beijing. I can totally let Miss Lin marry me. It's the same for your Lin family. You don't have to take such a big risk. Wang Zidong was speechless. I was worried about you. In the end, you hooked up with another family's miss in front of me? Lin Chaoying was also stunned. She couldn't help but spit. You really? It's not enough that you hooked up with my disciples. You even have ideas about my niece? Song Qingshu's smile was very pure. Don't let the goodies flow to outsiders. What do you mean by don't let the goodies flow to outsiders? Everyone in the field secretly scolded him for being shameless. Prince Beijing hurriedly said, Senior Lin, don't listen to his nonsense. This person is greedy and lustful. I don't know how many women he has defiled. If Daiyu marries him, with her noble and sentimental character, she will definitely not be able to bear the jealousy and will definitely die of depression. Lin Chaoying couldn't help but secretly nod when she heard this. Song Qingshu is good in all aspects, but he has too many women around him. Song Qingshu sighed. Prince Beijing just pretended to be pure and had few desires. After he became the emperor, he has 3 palaces and 6 courtyards and 72 concubines. Will there be a lack of women around him? Like he had a marriage alliance with Miss Shui previously. Lin Chaoying frowned. What he said was somewhat reasonable. All the stinky men in the world are all shameless people. Song Qingshu then said, Senior Lin, you don't have to worry about it. Miss Shui was also betrothed to him previously, but after they recognized each other's true colors, they changed their marriage to me. I will treat them and the Shui family sincerely. In addition, Miss Lin and Miss Shui are also considered friends. If she marries me, she will have an acquaintance by her side. She can talk to her and relieve her worries. The officials in the imperial court were dumbfounded when they heard this. What the hell? There's an acquaintance? Can this thing also be used to talk about acquaintances? Lin Chaoying was also so angry that she laughed instead. Why do I want to beat you more the more I listen to it? Song Qingshu put away his smile. Senior Lin, I was just analyzing the pros and cons with you just now. You have to think about it clearly. Now that Prince Beijing's conspiracy has been exposed, do you want the Lin family to be reviled by thousands of people together with him? Taking 10,000 steps back in the current situation, even if you support him, the odds of winning are only 50-50. But if the Lin family is on my side, we will definitely win. Senior is a smart person, and naturally, you will not be affected by your emotions. Lin Xiaoying was stunned and understood that what he said was indeed reasonable. In fact, if Prince Beijing was in a good position, she did not mind helping him. But now it was proven that he murdered the emperor and the crown prince. It was really endless trouble. Was it really necessary for the Lin family to accompany him to take the risk? Prince Beijing was anxious and was about to speak, but Lin Xiaoying took a deep breath. Well, you deal with the matter between you. The Lin family will not help either side. Senior, Prince Beijing hurriedly pulled her sleeves, but Lin Xiaoying's figure was so fast. The next moment, she had already left the hall. If I don't help the other party, it is also worthy of the years of friendship between our two families. Don't make it difficult for me. As for the marriage between Lin Daiyu and Song Qingshu, she did not even mention it. Anyway, as long as she, a great grandmaster, was here, there could be no problem for the Lin family. She disappeared, and the expressions of the people in the hall suddenly became strange. Even Prince Beijing's subordinates were measuring the strength of the two sides. Song Qingshu looked at Ancestor Sunflower with a smile. Ancestor, now it is only the two of us. Do you still want to fight with me? Ancestor Sunflower laughed. Look at what you said. What kind of relationship do we have? Of course, I am on your side. After saying that, he jumped to his side, pointed at Prince Beijing, and scolded, You deceived the emperor. Now that the evidence is conclusive, what else can you say? His sudden change of attitude shocked everyone. Who would have thought that he would be so unprincipled, betraying the emperor just like that? Where was the bearing of a great grandmaster? Prince Beijing was so angry that he wanted to vomit blood. He never expected that in the blink of an eye, he would become a loner. Just as he was about to say something, the scene suddenly changed. Ancestor Sunflower suddenly attacked the vital acupoint on the back of Song Qingshu, who was very close to him. Chapter 25:16. Everything happened too quickly. A second ago, the two of them were still talking about old times warmly, and the next second, they suddenly turned hostile. Patriarch Sunflower was fast to begin with. Almost as soon as he made his move, he had already pressed down on the vital acupuncture point on Song Qingshu's back. Wang Ziding and Xue Ji felt a chill in their hearts. It was over. If anything happened to Song Qingshu, the Beijing Marquis would settle the score with their two clans, and they would definitely die a tragic death. They wanted to save him, but how could they intervene in the sneak attack of a great grandmaster? Patriarch Sunflower was overjoyed when he saw that his palm was about to press down on Song Qingshu's back. But in the next moment, his smile froze because he found that his attack had hit a shadow. Then, a sharp and unparalleled sword energy counterattacked. He hurriedly exerted his body movement to the extreme and retreated 7 steps in a row before he stopped. Looking at the broken half of the embroidery needle in his hand, his face was gloomy. You knew I was going to sneak attack you. Song Qingshu sighed. I know old ancestors' temper very well. How can I not be cautious? What's more, if you really want to join forces with me, you could directly take down Duchess Beijing at the beginning to show your sincerity. Why do you have to deliberately come to my side? But what I don't understand is, no matter what, we are old acquaintances. Why would you risk your life to break off with me? Patriarch Sunflower threw the broken needle aside and straightened his back. He no longer had a wretched and gloomy temperament. Instead, he had a dignified air, as if he were the emperor of the world. He said, You should know that I absorb dragon chi to cultivate. But I don't know why. A few years ago, the dragon chi in the Manchurian dynasty was very strong, but not long after I went there to absorb it, I found that the dragon chi in the Manchurian dynasty was dissipating very quickly. Later, I went to the Southern Song Imperial Mausoleum. There was a lot of dragon chi there, and I thought it was enough for me to break through the void. But who knew? Not long after, the dragon chi dissipated again at an alarming rate. I didn't know if it was because I absorbed it that it dissipated, or if it was going to dissipate anyway. At first, I thought that I was going against the heavens, and that I was being punished by the heavens. But then I saw you on Wu-Tang Mountain. Patriarch Sunflower gave him a deep look. I noticed that you have dragon chi protecting you as well. When I saw you this time, I noticed that the dragon chi swirling above your head was comparable to the dragon chi of the Great Qing dynasty. It suddenly dawned on me that the reason why the dragon chi of both the Manchurian Qing and the Southern Song dynasty dissipated so quickly was because their chi flow had been transferred to you. You were destined to become a sovereign. Song Qing was startled. He thought about the human sovereign that the fairy of the nine heavens had mentioned before, and thought that such a mysterious thing was actually true. So you knew that I wouldn't let you absorb my fate. So you took the risk? Patriarch Sunflower laughed. That's right. Whether I absorbed the chi of the Manchurian Qing or the Southern Song dynasty, it didn't affect you at all. You could just stand by and watch. But if I wanted to absorb your chi flow and destroy your empire, you would never agree. Instead of that, I might as well make the first move. It's a pity that you avoided it. But it doesn't matter. Although the dragon chi I've refined over the years isn't enough to break through the void, it's enough to make me invincible in the world. Patriarch Sunflower's aura was fully unleashed, to the point where the faint sound of a dragon's roar could be heard in the hall. Quite a few people even had the impression that he was no longer the stooped eunuch, but rather a king sitting on a dragon throne. Song Qingshu looked a little strange. You're so confident that you're invincible. Patriarch Sunflower gave him a deep look. Little Song, I know that you've made rapid progress over the years. You're already a grandmaster at such a young age, but I've been in this realm for decades. My experience and knowledge in this area are far beyond that of a junior with an unstable foundation like yours. Besides, after refining the dragon chi of both the Manchurian Qing and the Southern Song dynasty, it's actually more than enough to kill me. Song, this chapter is not finished. Please continue to the next page. Song Qingshu shook his head. I know the monk's cultivation better than anyone else. If he hadn't been seriously injured, how could you have killed him? Besides, did you claim that you're invincible in the world because of your mouth? Talking for so long is not as convincing as fighting. Patriarch Sunflower was so angry that he let out an ear-piercing scream. Everyone in the hall, be it Prince Beijing's men or Wang Zeding's men, stopped fighting and covered their ears with their hands. Cracks appeared on many of the cups and vases in the hall. Patriarch Sunflower moved faster than the sound, and an embroidery needle appeared in his hand. The friction between the embroidery needles and the air seemed to produce some sparks, vaguely forming roaring golden dragons. The entire hall was suddenly filled with a terrifying pressure. Whether it was the guards with powerful martial arts, the strong-willed people like Xue Ji and Wang Zeding, or even Duchess Beijing who had reached the Grandmaster realm, all of their expressions changed drastically. It was as if they had seen the most terrifying scene in the legends. They all knelt on the ground and trembled, unable to summon any strength to resist. Song Qingshu was now the target of the attack, and the pressure he felt was thousands, if not tens of thousands, of times greater. Patriarch Sunflower had vanished from his vision, to be replaced by an enormous golden dragon that bore the will of the dragon god, and was about to crush an ant from the mortal world. Song Qingshu bit the tip of his tongue, and the pain finally brought him back to his senses. Even the Empyrean fairy can't do anything to me. What's so scary about a mere dragon god? An air of arrogance surged out of his chest, and he turned into a giant green sword, which he slashed at the golden dragon. In almost an instant, the golden dragon's head was cut in two. The terrible pressure in the hall disappeared, and a figure flew back like a broken rag doll. He hit a nearby pillar and slowly fell to the ground. What was that just now? It was so terrifying. Wang Zeding came to his senses and found that his clothes were soaked in cold sweat. Even thinking about it now, his legs still felt like jelly. I don't know. Xue Ji was even worse off. He had long since collapsed to the ground. How could Song Qingshu deal with that kind of terrifying pressure? He was worried about the fate of his clan, so he quickly looked over to see Song Qingshu standing there proudly, and Patriarch Sunflower lying in a pool of blood. He couldn't help but let out a long sigh of relief. Impossible. Impossible. How would you break through my domain? There should be no one in this world who can break through my domain. Patriarch Sunflower struggled to get to his feet, But no matter how hard he tried, he failed. However, he had no time to worry about that. He was in a state of extreme shock. He was confident that he was the first martial grandmaster to comprehend a domain, and that he was only half a step away from breaking through the void. That was why he was so confident that he was invincible in the world. But how could he have known that his proudest trump card, the domain, will be broken by his opponent in a head-on fight? Song Qingshu wasn't feeling too good either. His clothes were riddled with holes, and his clothes were stained red with blood. Clearly, he had been injured by Patriarch Sunflower's innate gang chi. He said slowly, "There's always someone better than you out there. Patriarch, your martial arts might be unparalleled in the world, but it's easier said than done to be invincible in the world." No, that's not right. Patriarch Sunflower's eyes had long since lost the brilliance of the past. Right now, he looked like an old man with one foot in the grave. I understand now. The aura you released just now doesn't belong to this world. It doesn't belong to this world. I didn't lose to you. As he spoke, his voice became softer and softer. A martial grandmaster of a generation had finally passed away with endless regrets. Song Qingshu was silent. If he hadn't had a negative distance exchange with the mysterious fairy of the Nine Heavens and understood the aura of the heavenly Tao on her, he might not have been able to defeat Patriarch Sunflower, even if he had used Sword 23. Just then, a dark figure suddenly pounced on him. It was Prince Beijing. This chapter is not yet finished. Please continue to the next page. Zhao Shirqing's heart went cold when he saw Patriarch Sunflower's defeat. But as a fierce and ambitious man of his generation, he wasn't willing to accept his fate so easily. He wanted to seize any chance to turn the tables. In his opinion, after that terrifying move from Patriarch Sunflower, even if Song Qingshu could defeat him, he would still be at the end of his rope. The wound and bloodstains on his chest were proof of that. As long as I seize this opportunity to kill him, I'll be able to turn the tables. And without Patriarch Sunflower as a martial grandmaster, it'll be easier for me to act after I ascend to the throne. Watch out! Wang Ziding and the others were thinking the same thing. They felt that Song Qingshu had won a Pyrrhic victory and was probably unable to resist a sneak attack from a grandmaster. They hurried over to help, but Patriarch Sunflower's pressure was too terrifying. Their legs were still weak, and it was too late to help. Song Qingshu frowned. He had to admire Prince Beijing's ingenious timing, but he didn't move at all. Soon, a beautiful figure in yellow flew from behind and blocked his way. "Zhao Shirqing, you killed the emperor and the crown prince. Today, I'm going to clean up the family." It was the yellow-robed woman. She used her 9 ungodly claws to fight with him. Prince Beijing was ranked first among the island of chivalry's messengers of rewarding good and punishing evil. Naturally, his martial arts were extraordinary, but the yellow-robed woman was Huang Chang's last disciple. Although she was young, she had long reached the Grandmaster realm. The two of them exchanged more than 10 blows, and it was difficult to determine the winner in a short time. Prince Beijing's heart was cold. He knew that he had lost his last chance to turn the tables, so he didn't have the mood to fight with her. He found an opportunity to break through the window. As long as he could keep his life, he would have a chance to make a comeback. But just as he jumped out of the window, a pair of big hands pressed on his shoulders. He instantly felt the inner energy in his body dispersing. He was shocked. Absorbing stars, great art. Rinwishing laughed. Your inner energy is very pure. It's just the right amount to make up for the energy I used to kill your subordinates. No, Prince Beijing struggled desperately, but he was restrained by the absorbing star's great technique. How could Rinwishing let him escape? Almost in an instant, his originally plump cheeks became a little shriveled, and his hair lost its luster. Obviously, his cultivation had been sucked away, and he had become a cripple. Song Qingshu said in a clear voice, "Prince Beijing has been captured. As for the rest, surrender, and you will be spared. Surrender, and you will be spared." The soldiers under his command shouted. Prince Beijing's most loyal subordinates had already been annihilated by Rinwishing and his men. When the rest saw that Patriarch Sunflower was dead and Prince Beijing was captured, they didn't have the heart to resist anymore. They dropped their weapons and knelt on the ground. Prince Beijing's rebellion was quelled just like that. Lin and regained its former peace. The streets and alleys were filled with stories of Song Qingshu's great achievements in quelling the rebellion. Song Qingshu's prestige had reached a whole new level. Originally, Ren Wuxing had suggested that he end all his troubles once and for all and directly ascend to the throne. However, Song Qingshu still rejected the suggestion after thinking about it for a while. Originally, he was a great and loyal minister. If he ascended the throne, the atmosphere would change. Later, under Liao Yingzhong's suggestion, he appointed the son of Prince Rong and Prince Rui, Prince Zhaochong, who was only a few years old, as the new emperor. Many knowledgeable people in the Southern Song dynasty could vaguely guess what was going on. But first of all, Song Qingshu did have the merit of stabilizing the heaven and earth. Second of all, he did not do anything improper. Therefore, even the most stubborn Confucian scholar could not say anything. These days, Song Qingshu was busy digesting the power vacuum left by Prince Beijing, the Jia family, and the Shi family. He remembered when he first arrived in Lin, the forces here were intertwined, which made it difficult for him to move. Now, all the obstacles were gone, and he could calmly place his confidence in various key positions. One day, he was reading official documents in Prince Qi's mansion. Suddenly, Ren Ying came to him with a complicated expression and told him, "Huang Rong wants to see you." End of this chapter. Chapter 25:17. Song Qingshu was startled. After a long time, he said, "Invite her in." Ren Ying nodded and went out to bring Huang Rong in. In order to avoid gossip, she directly dismissed the servants along the way. Looking at Ren Ying, who looked gentle but naturally exuded a graceful and noble temperament, Huang Rong secretly sighed. The women around him are always so beautiful. While Huang Rong was sizing Ren Ying up, Ren Ying was also secretly sizing her up. Even though they had met before, she still couldn't help but be amazed by Ren Ying's beauty this time. Her travel-worn body and the worry between her eyebrows didn't hide the charm and grace that flowed from her bones. That kind of extremely mature charm was far beyond that of ordinary girls. Ren Ying secretly sighed. No wonder that guy is willing to risk the world's condemnation. After bringing her to the door of the study, Ren Ying smiled slightly and said, "Chief Huang, Qingshu is inside. You can go in by yourself." She did not call Guoforan as she was worried that the other party would misunderstand her. After saying that, she smiled and nodded slowly, leaving the two alone. Huang Rong was secretly grateful. She thought that Miss Ren was really as understanding as the legend said. However, she stood at the door with her hand on the door but did not press it. She was quite hesitant and did not know what identity she should use to meet him. While she was hesitating, the door opened from the inside. Song Qingshu stood at the door and looked at her quietly. "Come in." It's eye-catching to stand at the door. Huang Rong blushed slightly and walked in with her head lowered. She casually found a stool and sat down. She opened her mouth several times but stopped herself. "Rong, I also know why you are here." Song Qingshu poured a cup of tea for her and handed it over. But this time, the descendants of the great Zhou dynasty rebelled and killed the king. It is really a bit troublesome to clean up. Huang Rong sighed. "How could I not know? It's just that I never thought that Jing Gij is the descendant of Chai Rong. If I had known earlier, I would not have let him be so rash." Song Qingshu nodded his head secretly. If Huang Rong had known about this earlier, with her intelligence and wisdom, she would never have let them be fooled by Prince Beijing. Song Qingshu thought for a moment and said, "After all, you didn't participate in the previous rebellion. Many people on Peach Blossom Island can testify for you. I'll find a way to get you out of it so that your family won't be harmed." Huang Rong was silent. She knew that this kind of rebellion and regicide would result in the execution of 9 generations. The other side must have done their best to protect them. "Thank you, but we can hide on Peach Blossom Island. With my father's protection, we don't have to worry about being wanted. I'm here to ask you something else. Is Jinga doing well?" "That's right," Ji Yinshu said. Song Qingshu shook his head. How can he be doing well? Prince Beijing took control of the palace. He was worried that something might happen, so he deliberately destroyed his dantian. I'm afraid he can't practice martial arts in the future, but compared to his upcoming punishment, it's nothing. Every dynasty had its own unique laws, but the treatment of rebellion was almost the same. 9 generations of the family would be executed, and the main culprit would be executed by 1,000 cuts. Huang Rong naturally knew about this. Her tears suddenly came out. Qingshu, I beg you for one thing. Song Qingshu stopped her from continuing. I know what you're going to say, but you're known as the female Zhuge. Tell me, in this kind of situation, how can I save him when all the civil and military officials and all the people are watching? Huang Rong bit her lips. Actually, there's a way to save him. What way? Song Qingshu was stunned. Huang Rong said, you can find a criminal sentenced to death in the heavenly prison and use the disguise technique to disguise him as Brother Jing. You can use the trick of replacing him. Song Qingshu said in a low voice, I've thought of this, but Brother Gua is so famous. Once people see that he is still alive, it will cause an earthquake in the court. You know how powerful the imperial censors of the Southern Song dynasty are. Even I can't bear the consequences. Huang Rong bit her lips, so after exchanging him, let him stay away from the Southern Song dynasty. He can go to Mongolia. I've heard about what happened between him and Huajing. Now that Temujin is dead, there are no obstacles between them. Huajing has always been good to him and will definitely take good care of him. What about you? Will you go to Mongolia and hide your identity? Song Qingshu looked at her quietly. Huang Rong shook her head. Huajing is there. If I go, everyone will feel uncomfortable. What's more, my father and I don't like the life in Mongolia. I will definitely stay on Peach Blossom Island for the rest of my life. Song Qingshu sighed, but Brother Gua may not be satisfied. He may not be willing to give up everything here. After going through so much, what else can he not accept? Huang Rong smiled sadly. The country that he worked so hard for most of his life turned out to be his enemy. The people that he worked so hard to protect now want to kill him. What else is there for him to stay here? Arrange for me to meet him. I have something to tell him. I'm sure he will be willing to go to Ma Bei. Song Qingshu nodded. Okay. Next, he arranged for Huang Rong to meet Guijing in prison. He did not arrange for anyone to eavesdrop. The two talked for a long time. When Huang Rong came out, her eyes were still red. A few days later, Guijing was pushed to the market and executed by 1,000 cuts. The people all over the world clapped and cheered. Of course, there were also many who sighed. Even after many years, there were still people who refused to believe the truth. There were various versions of the legend. Some said that Guijing did not actually die, but lived in seclusion among the people. Some said that Guijing made up for his mistakes by joining the army to serve the country. There were also some who swore that they saw him in Ma Bei, Mongolia. After that, Song Qingshu still had a lot of things to do. The Jia family was confiscated, and Li Wan came to ask for help. After all, she was the daughter-in-law of the Jia family. She could not stand by and do nothing. However, the Jia family had committed such a serious crime. The law was merciless. They still had to confiscate what they had to. The only thing Song Qingshu could do was to try his best to protect some people and arrange for people to take care of them secretly. The Shi family was almost the same. However, Shi Miyuan was indeed an ambitious person. He took the initiative to commit suicide in prison and left a will. He took all the blame on himself and saved many of the Shi family's children. The Shui family also pushed out a few scapegoats. After all, many people saw the Shui family and Prince Beijing working together. There had to be an explanation. After taking care of these matters, the Shui family began to enthusiastically arrange the marriage between the young miss and the Prince of Qi. Originally, Song Qingshu had said that Shui Baochai alone was enough, but Shui Ji was unwilling to agree and insisted on bringing Shui Baoqin as well. After all, the alliance between Song Qingshu and the Shui family was still a little fragile. He was also worried that his refusal would cause unnecessary misunderstanding, so he reluctantly agreed. Seeing that the Shui family was busy preparing for the marriage, It seemed that they were faintly overshadowing the Wang family. Wang Ziding also felt uncomfortable. He wanted to help, but when he thought about the matter of his sister-in-law, Li Qingluo, he became angry, which made his hands and feet tied. However, Song Qingshu did not pay too much attention to these. With his current identity and status, marriage was just a means. It was difficult to pour too much emotion into it. At this moment, he looked at the 2 letters asking for help from thousands of miles away. It turned out that Korea was asking for help from the Southern Song dynasty. The Mongolian expedition to the east was like a hot knife cutting through butter. Korea was in imminent danger, so they asked the Song dynasty to send troops for the sake of their former friendship. Obviously, these letters were sent in groups. They were asking for help from the Southern Song dynasty, which was so far away. It was obvious that they were desperate. The other letter was written by Fu Junyu to Jia Baoyu. She reminisced about the time they spent together and asked him to help persuade the Southern Song emperor to agree to send troops. Obviously, she still did not know what had happened in the Southern Song dynasty. Song Qingshu did not expect that when he assassinated Temujin in Mount Lupan as a member of the Shui sect, he wanted to divert the trouble to Dongying. Who would have thought that Korea would be the first to suffer? However, it was not unexpected. During the marriage contest in Western Xia, he killed many Mongolian masters as the guru Fu Kalen of Korea. At that time, Temujin was furious and sent a 10,000-man team to seek justice. Now, if he wanted to take revenge in Dongying, he must first take down Korea as a springboard. Song Qingshu decided to make a trip to Goryeo. After hearing the news, the women around him all disagreed. Ren Yingying frowned and said, "Qingshu, I don't say anything when you flirt with others. But this time, for the sake of 2 Goryeo women, is there a need to put yourself in danger?" The girl in yellow also said angrily. What's more, the 2 sisters remembered Jia Baoyu from Western Xia. Back in Western Xia, she had witnessed Song Qingshu flirting with the 2 Korean women in Jia Baoyu's appearance. Seeing them all talking at once, Song Qingshu felt a headache coming on. It's really not what you think. This time, I'm not going for those 2. I'm going to deal with the Mongolian main force. The Mongolian main force? Ren Yingying was startled. Song Qingshu nodded. Although the Mongolians suffered a great defeat at Mount Lupan by assassinating Temujin, it didn't hurt them to the core. The Mongolians still have their strength. If they finish dealing with Korea and Dongying, then their invincible cavalry and Dongying's navy will invade south. That will be a nightmare for all the countries in the Central Plains. I've been planning for so long. I want to lure the Mongolians to the sea. Only then will I have a chance to destroy the invincible Mongolian cavalry. You want to fight on the sea? Ren Yingying's eyes lit up. The girl in yellow nodded repeatedly. That's right. Although the Mongolian cavalry is powerful on land, once they're in the water, they won't be able to withstand a single blow. That's right. I want to use this opportunity to completely destroy the Mongolian main force so that they won't be able to invade south again. Song Qingshu recalled the history in his memory. He had always been following the flow of events, following the flow of history in his memory. It was just that he had moved it forward a bit. Seeing that his analysis was reasonable, the girls no longer tried to stop him. Ren Yingying was the only one who secretly pulled Song Qingshu aside and said, "Qingshu, if the Mongolians really are completely destroyed, then the countries in the Central Plains will no longer have this external threat. In fact, it won't be very beneficial to you." Song Qingshu naturally understood what she meant. He smiled. "Don't worry, I know what I'm doing. Goryeo should be the last piece of the map. Everything will end there." Chapter 25:18. Song Qingshu asked the girl in yellow to stay in Lin and to help Ren Yingying deal with government affairs. She was a princess and had the support of the Jianshan Academy. She needed her help with public opinion. Shui Baochai was also asked to stay. Although they needed to spend time alone to warm up their relationship, Song Qingshu had no time to care about it. After all, the matter in Goryeo was urgent. Shui Baochai was the link between the Shui family and the Shui family. Without her, as a lubricant, the communication between Prince Chi's mansion and the Shui family would be quite troublesome. As for the Jia family and the Shi family, Song Qingshu had no time to deal with them now. He would leave them there until he was free. Anyway, Liao Yingzhong was here. He would do his best to take care of them. As for the Lin family, although Song Qingshu had joked with Lin Xiaoying about marrying Lin Daiyu, Lin Xiaoying clearly had no such intentions. As for his eventual victory, the Lin family had tacitly acknowledged his status and acknowledged the fruits of his victory. Song Qingshu also specially went to the Lin family and talked about his care for Lin Pingji and his friendly relationship with a grand disciple of the ancient tomb sect. Finally, Lin Xiaoying believed that he would not shake the Lin family's position. Although the Lin family was in charge of finance, it was small. Compared with the Jia family, the Shi family, the Wang family, and the Shui family, its influence in the officialdom was still limited. Song Qingshu did not mind doing a favor. After all, a great grandmaster was like a nuclear deterrent. He had to give her face. Unfortunately, he did not see Lin Daiyu on this trip. He did not know whether Lin Xiaoying was deliberately guarding against him or not. Of course, Song Qingshu did not say that he fell in love with Lin Daiyu. He was used to using marriage to ensure the relationship between the two parties. He despised himself for this. In those TV dramas, young masters and young mistresses resisted their families' marriages and pursued freedom of love. Why was it that when it came to me, I actually enjoyed it? Before leaving, Lin Xiaoying suddenly asked, "What is the relationship between you and Xiao Longnu?" Song Qingshu was stunned and let out a long sigh. More than friends, but not lovers? In fact, he and Xiao Longnu already had a good impression of each other. However, because of Yang Guo and his philandering ways, there was always a slight barrier between the two of them. They were never able to take the last step. He suddenly understood Yang Guo's feelings in the original work. Although Xiao Longnu looked innocent and pure, she was actually very meticulous and sensitive. When she got jealous several times, she would often leave without saying goodbye. Where could he find her in this world? In Helen City, he heard Ho Shibai mention that he saw her in Mount Hung. He didn't know what she was doing there and where she was now. Lin Xiaoying frowned. Apparently, she did not understand what he meant. I heard about the things you did to help her. I can see that you treat her well. I also asked Lamacho. She said that Xiao Longnu also likes you. So I don't understand what you two are doing. I don't want you to experience the regret between me and Wang Zhou in the past. Lin Xiaoying's eyes were a little wet. Wang Zhou and I have been competitive all our lives. Unfortunately, our strength is almost the same. Neither of us is willing to admit defeat first. So we wasted our lives. When we finally had the chance to be together in our old age, we were separated not long after. There is no such problem between you and Xiao Longnu. Although Xiao Longnu's martial arts are good, she is far from you. Why are you so hesitant as a man? Song Qingshu looked strange. You want me to use force? Lin Xiaoying sneered. I have heard all kinds of rumors about you over the years. It seems that you have used force many times. Why are you pretending to be a gentleman here? I have already given up. Song Qingshu looked embarrassed. That? Senior Lin, can you give me a token or something? Lin Xiaoying was stunned. What do you want a token for? Song Qingshu laughed and said, If I have a chance to see Xiao Longnu, I will tell her that all this is the idea of her ancestor. She will definitely doubt it. Then I'll take out your token and everyone will be happy. Lin Xiaoying was speechless. Get lost. As soon as she finished speaking, she slammed the door, almost hitting Song Qingshu's nose. This is not too much to ask. Touching his nose, Song Qingshu shook his head and left. However, Lin Xiaoying's words reminded him that he was indeed too rational in dealing with the relationship with Xiao Longnu. To put it nicely, he respected Xiao Longnu's opinion too much. To put it bluntly, he was indecisive. When a relationship between a man and a woman was in an impasse, someone must take the initiative. It was a little difficult for Xiao Longnu to take the initiative, so he could only rely on himself to take the initiative. But what was the use of saying so much? He didn't know where she had gone, and it was unknown when he would see her. After arranging things in Lin and Song Qing-shu set out to leave. Before leaving, Shui Baochai found him. I want to give you a gift. Song Qing-shu was immediately happy. The gift from Sister Bao must be very special. Shui Baochai's face turned red. Don't call me that in the future. You are obviously much older than me. Song Qing-shu couldn't help laughing. I can't help it. When I went to Xixia, I was afraid of being seen through by you, so I kept reminding myself to pay attention to the way I address you. As a result, I got used to calling you that. Recalling the process of the marriage between them in Xixia, Shui Baochai was in a trance for a while. What gift are you going to give me? Seeing that she had been silent, Song Qing-shu couldn't help but ask curiously. You will know when you get there. With your temperament, you will definitely like it. Shui Baochai snorted, and there was some inexplicable meaning in her eyes. Song Qing-shu followed her to the bank of Qiantang River and suddenly noticed that there were many large ships docked near the pier. On the bow of the most majestic ship stood a graceful young lady. She was wearing a red fur coat, which accentuated her snow-white skin. When her eyes looked around, they were extremely lively, like pearls and beautiful jade. She was even more beautiful than a painting. She stood at the bow of the ship, and passers-by stopped to watch. There were even some romantic scholars who tried to go over and strike up a conversation, but they were stopped by the surrounding guards. They could only secretly guess which big family's daughter was from, and they didn't know what kind of man was worthy of such a person. Song Qing-shu couldn't help saying, Jiangnan is really a place of outstanding people. I just met a girl who is so beautiful and charming. I don't know which family's daughter is from. Shui Baochai rolled her eyes. I'm afraid you are the only one in the world who has so many wives that you don't even know yourself. Huh? Song Qing-shu was puzzled. At this moment, the young girl saw the two of them. She excitedly waved at them, then ran over with a face full of joy. Elder sister, it's been a long time since I've seen you. The two young girls hugged and chatted for a while. Afterwards, the young girl used an extremely curious gaze to size up Song Qing-shu. Elder sister, is he our future husband? Song Qing-shu was speechless. Hearing her question, Shui Baochai's face reddened slightly. However, she still nodded her head. Let me introduce you. He is the Prince of Qi, Song Qing-shu. He is also your future husband. This is my younger sister, Shui Baoqin. You should have realized by now. Shui Baoqin. Only then did Song Qing-shu come to a realization. He had only heard of her name in the past, but had never seen her. He curiously sized up this young girl, who was even more famous than Lin and Shui in Dream of the Red Chamber. Previously, he didn't notice it from afar. Now that he was in close contact with her, he discovered that she had Baochai's brilliance, but was bright and cheerful. She didn't have Baochai's shrewdness and gloominess. She had Daiyu's innocence, but was brighter than Daiyu. She was truly a beautiful young girl. Brother Song, how do you do? Shui Baoqin wasn't shy at all. She gracefully bowed to him. Then she pulled her elder sister and whispered, He is much more handsome than that Prince of Beijing. He also has a natural and open-minded air about him. He really is just as the rumors say. Shui Baochai's face reddened. She hurriedly pulled at the corner of her clothes. His martial arts are high. He can hear. Song Qing-shu couldn't help but laugh. How can I be angry when I receive praise from beauty? Shui Baoqin stuck out her tongue. She looked much more excited than Shui Baochai. Shui Baochai secretly sighed. Her younger sister had heard of Song Qing-shu's legend before and admired him a little. Now that she knew that she had been betrothed to him, she was overjoyed. In comparison, Shui Baochai was much more helpless. She quickly gathered her thoughts and said, Brother Song, I know that you're going to deal with the Mongols on the sea. It just so happens that Baoqin has been sailing with her people since she was a child. Later, she gradually became responsible for the Shui family's ocean business. Don't be fooled by her young age. She is better at sailing than many experienced sailors. Moreover, the ocean trade often involves fighting with Japanese and pirates. She also wants to be good at it. This time, the Shui family's fleet is coming back from a trade. Her fleet will accompany you to Liaodong. It should be able to help you. Song Qing-shu couldn't help but be overjoyed. He originally thought that the gift Xue Baochai mentioned was Xue Baoqin. Although she was indeed a very beautiful girl, it was difficult for him to be moved by her beauty. However, the other party brought such a powerful ocean fleet. It was completely different. Only then did he remember that on the ship to Sichuan, he heard Madame Ruan mention that the Ruan family and the Xue family were two big royal merchants. The Ruan family was responsible for the inland trade, while the Xue family was responsible for the ocean trade. At that time, she also specially praised the Xue family's second daughter, Xue Baoqin, who was young, beautiful, and capable. She managed the ocean trade in an orderly manner. It must be said that the Xue family was really generous this time. Thinking about it, Xue Ji must be a little nervous. After all, he used to be an ally of Duke Beijing. This time, to a large extent, he had no choice but to change sides. He was worried that after the situation stabilized in the future, he directly took out his trump card to show his goodwill. No wonder he said that Xue Baochai alone was enough, but the other party insisted on Xue Baoqin. It turned out that this was what he meant. Song Qingshu had to admit that he was a little dissatisfied with the Xue family before. After all, the two sides used to be enemies for so long. But now it seemed that Xue Ji was really an ambitious person. Once he chose a side, he would not hold back. If he had a progress bar of favorability, the other party's move would have almost exploded his favorability. This gift is really too perfect. Song Qingshu hugged Xue Baochai and kissed her on the cheek. Thank you. Xue Baochai blushed and pushed him away in a flurry. What are you doing? There are so many people watching. At the side, Xue Baoqin was eager to see the world in chaos. Sister, why are you worried? Anyway, you are engaged, so it's not rude. In the end, Xue Baochai could not take it anymore and hurriedly said, I'll leave her to you. I'll be leaving first. Seeing Xue Baochai's figure running away in a hurry, Xue Baoqin could not help but sigh. Brother Song, sister isn't as heartless as me. Don't mind her. She needs time to digest. Song Qingshu nodded. I've been with her for as long as you have. I know about her, so you don't have to worry. A bright smile appeared on Xue Baoqin's face. That's good, Brother Song. I'll bring you to see my fleet. Oh, no, this will be your fleet in the future. Song Qingshu had to admit that Xue Baoqin's personality was warm and cheerful. In addition, she was beautiful and had a natural affinity. They had never met before, so it was reasonable to say that there was some distance between them. However, after a few words, the two of them soon became familiar with each other like old friends. Xue Baoqin led Song Qingshu to visit the Xue family's fleet. Along the way, she intimately held his hand and introduced his identity to her subordinates. It did not take long for the main figures of the entire fleet to know their son-in-law. Brother Song, which direction are we going next? Are we going directly to Liaodong? After the tour, Xue Baoqin blinked her big bright eyes and asked. Song Qingshu thought for a moment and said, since we are going to the Qiantang River, we must pass by Hangzhou Bay. Let's go to Peach Blossom Island first. Xue Baoqin's lips curled up slightly, and there was a trace of mischief between her eyebrows. It seems that the rumors are true. Brother Song really has some relationship with gang leader Huang. Chapter 2519. Song Qingshu couldn't help feeling embarrassed. You misunderstood. I'm going to find Island Master Huang. Brother Song, you don't need to explain. I understand. Xue Baoqin smiled brightly, making Song Qingshu feel very uncomfortable. But then he thought about it and realized that there was nothing to be guilty about, so he gradually relaxed. Xue Baoqin passed down the order, and the fleet set off for Peach Blossom Island. She accompanied Song Qingshu the entire way, explaining to him some general knowledge about the fleet. At the same time, she also inquired about some of his great achievements. He had to admit that being looked at with adoration and adoration by such a beautiful girl was very pleasing to any man. The two of them got along very well. The fleet sailed along the Qiantang River. When the fleet passed by Shanin, Song Qingshu hesitated for a moment. In the end, he didn't order the ship to stop. Time was of the essence. It would be better to wait until the general situation was settled before returning to see Shin Bijuan and Chung Yaojia. He didn't know how they were doing. When they reached the mouth of the sea, they headed southeast. Facing the vast sea, they couldn't help but feel a sense of awe towards nature. No matter how high a person's martial arts were, they were still as small as an ant in the sea. The hull of the ship rose and fell. Xue Baoqi noticed that he was a bit tired and said, "Brother Song, the road is still long. Why don't you go to your room and rest first?" Song Qingshu nodded. He really did have some things to think about in his room. Xue Baoqi brought him to a room. Looking at the clearly feminine decorations and the faint, sweet fragrance in the air, he couldn't help but be stunned. "This room," Xue Baoqi smiled shyly. "This is my room. Brother Song, you don't mind, right?" Song Qingshu laughed. "Second Miss Xue's room is the dream of many men. Why would I mind? But for now, I can rest here for the time being." At night, Xue Baoqi blushed. "If Brother Song doesn't mind, you can also sleep here. In any case, we have an engagement." Song Qingshu was stunned. He didn't expect her to be so enthusiastic. He couldn't react for a moment. Xue Baoqi pursed her lips and said, "Brother Song, will this make you think that I'm too unreserved? I'm not like this to others. It's just because I've always liked you that I..." Seeing her embarrassed look, Song Qingshu laughed and hugged her soft waist. "Compared with your sister, your temperament is really different." Xue Baoqi showed a sad smile. "It's mainly because I've been traveling with my clansmen since I was a child, visiting all kinds of famous mountains and rivers. Later, I went to Nanyang to do business, so I didn't have so many rules and regulations. My character is wilder than those girls in Lin and City. My father often scolded me because of this." Song Qingshu shook his head. "On the contrary, I feel that it is very good for you to dare to love and dare to hate. Those eldest young ladies of Lin and Prefecture are indeed too ruthlessly bound by the feudal ethics. They are not as cute as you. By the way, remember to teach your sister more in the future." Hearing that he didn't mind, Xue Baoqi smiled sweetly. "Brother Song, you're really different from others, but I'm afraid it'll be difficult for my sister to change her temper." "That's true." Song Qingshu nodded in agreement. He couldn't imagine Xue Baoqi being so proactive and enthusiastic. "Brother Song, you rest first. I'll go out and see the situation of the fleet." Xue Baoqi nodded slightly and turned to leave. However, Song Qingshu grabbed her and said, "Don't go. Stay with me and talk." Xue Baoqi was stunned, but she didn't refuse. "Okay. Baoqi, your bed is so soft." "Well, my skin has been sensitive since I was a child. I can feel the slightest bit uncomfortable, so I always make the bedding very soft. Sit next to me." "Okay." After a while, Xue Baoqi's voice suddenly trembled a little. "Brother Song, didn't you say they'll talk to you? You could talk now." "Brother Song, it's daytime now. If you want, I'll accompany you at night." "Why does it have to be at night? Isn't it good now?" Xue Baoqi's face was bright red, but she didn't say anything. She acquiesced to his actions. When he entered her soft body and felt her tense and trembling body, Song Qingshu couldn't help but sigh. No wonder so many people pursued power. It felt good. Whether it was the rumors about Xue Baoqi or the sight of her attracting the attention of passers-by at the dock, he could imagine how many young men regarded her as the goddess of their dreams. They were worried about their gains and losses, afraid that they would leave a bad impression in her heart if they did anything rude. But now he could have her so easily. Not long ago, she was the future imperial concubine. However, after the man's possessiveness, Song Qingshu also regained his rationality. It was not because of power that he could have her so easily, but because he was charming enough. The admiration in the girl's eyes and the reaction of her body couldn't be faked. After spending 2 days on the ship, accompanied by a warm body, they finally arrived at Peach Blossom Island. Early in the morning, the sound of a flute was heard, followed by a clear voice. Peach Blossom Island has always minded its own business with the Xue family. I wonder why you have come with so many people this time. Song Qingshu hurried out of the cabin and looked at the thin old man standing at the top of the mast. He smiled and said, "How have you been?" "I'm Master Huang." Huang Yaoshi's expression changed when he saw it was him. It's you. Greetings, Island Master Huang. I came here with a request, Song Qing-shu said respectfully. Although his martial arts had long surpassed the other parties, no matter how he looked at it, the other party was still his senior. Huang Yaoshi turned his head and walked away. Don't speak, I don't agree. Then he used his lightness skill and disappeared into the fog. Song Qing-shu was stunned. I haven't said anything yet. Why do you look like you've seen a ghost? He hurriedly said to Shweb Baochai, who was giggling, let the fleet wait here. I'll go to the island first. There are many formations nearby, so don't rush in. Shweb Baochai smiled. Yes, we'll wait for you here. Song Qing-shu also used his lightness skill and rushed in the direction where Huang Yaoshi disappeared. Huang Yaoshi's lightness kung fu could be considered one of the best in the Wulin world, but unfortunately, he ran into Song Qing-shu. In addition, he had been to the Peach Blossom Island before, so Huang Rong had explained to him all the strange formations on the island. After a while, Huang Yaoshi saw Song Qing-shu standing not far away with a smile on his face. He had to stop, and his face was as black as charcoal. Did you come here to show off in front of me? Huang Yaoshi snorted and looked at the handsome man in front of him with hatred. No father would be happy to see a man who had stolen his daughter. Moreover, they had such a shameful relationship. Huang Yaoshi was known as the Eastern Heretic. If he saw someone he didn't like, he would either break their legs or cut off their ears. The most annoying thing was that he couldn't beat this guy. Island Master Huang has misunderstood. I came here to ask a favor of you. Song Qing-shu said. Huang Yaoshi snorted. Don't even think about it. I won't agree to your relationship with Rong. Although I don't like that brat with Jing, what are you two doing? I don't want the world to criticize her. Song Qing-shu smiled bitterly. Island Master Huang has misunderstood. I didn't come here because of Rong, but because of you. Because of me? Huang Yaoshi suddenly felt a chill run down his spine. He had never heard that this guy was interested in men. Song Qing-shu continued. I have always admired Island Master Huang's knowledge of astronomy and geography. This time I came to ask Island Master Huang to come out of seclusion. You don't need to be sarcastic. If I hadn't spent so much time and energy on these perverted techniques, I wouldn't have let you come out unscathed. Huang Yaoshi snorted. Song Qing-shu hurriedly explained. Island Master Huang has misunderstood. This time I want to deal with the Mongolian army on the sea. I need to know the weather conditions of the sea in advance. After thinking about it, the best person in the world in this area is you. Oh, deal with the Mongolian army? Island Master Huang was quite surprised and quickly fell in a deep thought. Father, did something happen? At this moment, a gentle and pleasant voice was heard from the distant peach blossom forest. Looking towards the direction of the voice, a beautiful young woman was standing under a peach tree. Her face was truly a beautiful combination of peach blossoms and human face. A few days ago, the right side of my nose kept running. Although it seemed to be getting better, now the left side is starting again. Previously, I saw a book friend mention using normal saline solution to clean my nose. Today, I went to the community hospital and prescribed some. I don't read much, so I hope you're not lying to me. Chapter 25:20. Although the young woman was charming and graceful, there was a frown between her brows. It was obvious that there was something troubling her. Rong, Song Qing-shu couldn't help but call out to her. Huang Yaoshi immediately looked at him. Huang Rong also saw him. Her body trembled and her eyes were filled with disbelief. If you have something to say it inside. Huang Yaoshi couldn't help but snort when he saw the two of them holding hands and looking at each other with tears in their eyes. He walked into the island with a dark expression. Song Qing-shu hurried to Huang Rong's side and said, I haven't seen you for a few days. Why have you lost weight? Huang Rong was a little flustered. Why are you here? Seeing her expression, Song Qing-shu smiled. You don't have to worry about me forcing you. I'm here for your father. For my father? Huang Rong was relieved when she heard that he wasn't here to force her to make a decision. She blinked her eyes in confusion. The three of them sat down in the house. Song Qing-shu couldn't help but look around. Where are Miss Lu and Miss Chung? He heard that Huang Rong was pregnant and that they were taking care of her on Peach Blossom Island. Huang Yaoshe was so angry that he laughed. Isn't it enough to harm my daughter? Now you want to harm my disciple? Song Qingshu smiled awkwardly. He was just asking casually and didn't expect to provoke this gunpowder barrel. Huang Rong smiled and whispered to him. It seems that the Lu family had some business with them, and they went back to visit their relatives. Moreover, I can take care of myself now, so I didn't bother them. So that's how it is. Song Qingshu felt a little regretful that he missed them again when he passed by Shanin City. You plan to deal with the Mongolian army on the sea? Huang Yaoshe saw the two of them whispering to each other. Song Qingshu nodded. That's right. Even though the Mongolians suffered great losses during the battle at Mount Lupan, the Mongolians have been too strong over the years, and they didn't manage to damage their foundation. If they conquer Dongying, they will definitely head south. By then, with the Dongying Navy's strength, their last weakness will be covered, and they will be invincible. Huang Yaoshe frowned. Even if they want to go south, there are still the Jin, Qing, and Xixia in between. Isn't it better to let both sides suffer? Song Qingshu shook his head and said, Everyone saw how the Mongols attacked Western Xia like a hot knife cutting through butter. Western Xia is not weak, and they did not suffer any losses even after fighting against the Song Empire for 100 years. Yet, in just a few short months, they were almost wiped out. You can imagine how the Song Empire is going to defend itself once they attack the Song Empire. Huang Rong, who was by the side, nodded as well. That's right. Reaping the benefits of a third party is only built when the two enemies are evenly matched. Right now, Mongolia's strength far surpasses that of any country in the Central Plains. If we just sit back and do nothing, they will defeat us one by one. After they swallow up those countries, Mongolia will become stronger, and it will be even harder for us to catch up. Seeing his daughter speak up for him, Huang Yaoshe angrily snorted. It was true that women tended to leave their husbands. Perhaps she had forgotten, but he remembered clearly. That year, she also helped Guijing, that idiot, to anger me. At this moment, Song Qingshu said, the best way to deal with the invincible Mongolian cavalry is to drag them into a naval battle. I've been planning for many years and finally succeeded in luring the Mongolian army to Dongying. If we miss this opportunity, I'm afraid we won't get another chance. Huang Yaoshe was surprised. Didn't the Mongolians attack Dongying because they sent the Shui West sect to kill Temujin? What does that have to do with you? With a bitter smile, Song Qingshu explained his disguising skills and showed them the basics. Now that things had come to this, he wasn't afraid that his secret would be revealed. Moreover, he knew that Huang Yaoshe was a patriot and would never betray him. Huang Yaoshe was shocked and couldn't help but sigh. So you were the one who did all this. Now that I think about it, I admire you. Noticing his daughter's calm expression, he couldn't help but ask, You already knew? Huang Rong shook her head. Although he didn't tell me directly before, he reminded me a few times, and I can roughly guess what happened. Song Qingshu couldn't help but sigh. Ronger, you are really smart. Huang Yaoshe chuckled. Your disguising skills are really amazing. It's a pity that you didn't become a rapist. Huang Rong couldn't help but glare at her father. Daddy, if the other party was a rapist, then what was she? Huang Yaoshe sighed inwardly, knowing that his daughter was falling deeper and deeper. He didn't have the energy to care about anything else. Although I'm an expert in Chiman Dunjia, I'm not good at fighting. I'm afraid you found the wrong person this time. Song Qingshu shook his head. I haven't found the wrong person. Leading troops to war is secondary, but the most important thing is the weather. If we want to completely destroy the Mongolian fleet, we must borrow the power of nature, namely tsunamis and storms. Looking at the whole world, who else but you who is so familiar with astronomy, geography, and the sea? After a lot of flattery, Huang Yaoshe's expression softened. Fine, I promise you. But this is not for you, it's for the people of the world. Thank you, Island Master Huang. Song Qingshu couldn't help but be overjoyed. In addition, I would like to invite Chief Huang to Liaodong with me. Before he could finish, Huang Yaoshe was furious. He took out his jade flute and chased after him. "You're still saying you're not here for Romer?" Song Qingshu dodged and hurriedly explained, "That's because Chief Huang is better at commanding troops, strategizing, and you're good at swimming. When the time comes, you'll definitely be of help." "As if I believe you." The two chased and fought for a while, finally ending with a few bumps on Song Qingshu's head. "Is this guy doing this on purpose because he knows I won't dare to fight back?" Huang Yaoshi, on the other hand, felt a sense of comfort in his heart. He didn't know that it felt so good to beat a great grandmaster. Huang Yaoshi had vented his anger and looked at Song Qingshu with less hostility. He then said, "Ronger, go and make arrangements for Xiang and Polu. We'll go to Liaodong together." Song Qingshu's heart trembled, and he couldn't help but look at Huang Rong. "Can I go and see them?" Huang Rong bit her lips, and an unexpected blush appeared on her face. "Okay." Huang Rong arranged for Guo Fu and the Wu brothers to stay on the island to take care of the twins. After all, the island had all kinds of servants, so there was no need to worry about them not being able to take care of them. Of course, considering Guo Fu's impetuous character, she also sent a letter to Cheng Ying to ask her meticulous junior sister to come and take care of the twins. When they left the island, Huang Rong couldn't help but whisper to Song Qingshu, "I deliberately sent Fu away. You know she used to like you, but when she found out about the rumors, she was very angry, so I didn't dare to let her see you." Song Qingshu smiled awkwardly. "That's just right." At first, Guijing wanted to betroth Guo Fu to him. Who knew that things would turn out this way? After boarding the Shui family's fleet, even Huang Yaoshi was amazed. He had been at sea for a long time, so he had naturally heard of the Shui family's fleet. Now that he saw Shui Baoqin, a young girl, managing such a large fleet so well, he felt as if the new generation had surpassed the old one. Shui Baoqin warmly received the father and daughter. Her words and actions were exactly like a lady from a noble family, and there was nothing wrong with her. Huang Rong was very smart, so she immediately realized the relationship between the two from their expressions and actions. She couldn't help but secretly sigh. He really was a devil incarnate, flirting with so many beautiful girls wherever he went. Next, the fleet went north. Along the way, Song Qingshu kept discussing with Huang Yaoshi, Shui Baoqin, and Huang Yaoshi the various possibilities of fighting on the sea, and gradually gained some understanding of the upcoming war. Next, they went to Yangzhou to pick up Hua Qingtong. Among her beauties, no one could match her ability to lead troops to war. However, she had lived in the Northwest for a long time and had no experience in fighting on the sea, so she needed the help of Huang Rong, Huang Yaoshi, and Shui Baoqin. Originally, Zhou Jiruo wanted to go with them, but she was pregnant. Obviously, the hard work she had done in the Northwest had played a role. Song Qingshu was pleasantly surprised and firmly refused to let her go with them. The first trimester of a pregnant woman was the most dangerous period, and the baby couldn't be affected at all. How could she be tired from the upcoming war? Zhou Jiruo had no choice but to stay in Yangzhou to help Ren Yingying and be ready to support her at any time. Casley also wanted to go with them, but Hua Qingtong refused. She didn't want her sister to take any risks. Casley was also considerate. She knew that she couldn't play a role on the battlefield and needed someone to protect her, so she didn't insist. Yuan Zi originally wanted to go with them, but thinking that Casley was here alone and they didn't speak the language, she couldn't be at ease because of their deep sisterly relationship, so she decided to stay. Then the fleet went up the Yellow Sea to the Golden Snake Camp and met up with Xia Qingqing and Ajio. The two women had already received a messenger pigeon and prepared the navy of the Golden Snake Camp. The navy of the Golden Snake Camp had always been outstanding, and there was a lot of room for them to play this time. After parting with Ajio and Xia Qingqing for many years, Song Qingshu hugged them tightly and felt extremely guilty. On the contrary, it was the two women who kept comforting him that the important things were more important. In addition, he sent Zheng Ro and Yelu Yanbei to Yanjing City to inform Dongfang Muxue. It should be noted that the navy of the Qing Kingdom couldn't be underestimated. When the time came, they would definitely unite all forces. Then, Song Qingshu took the women and the fleet to the Divine Dragon Island, leaving the main force there to wait for an opportunity. The Divine Dragon Island was on the east of the Liaodong Peninsula, not too far from the Korean Peninsula. If the main force went further, it would easily alarm the Mongolian scouts. Fang Yi and Mu Jianpain were very excited to see him. It should be noted that it was really lonely to stay on the Divine Dragon Island all these years. The number of times they met with Song Qingshu could be counted on one hand. If they couldn't go to the Golden Snake Camp, sometimes to accompany Ajio and Qingqing, it would probably be very difficult for them to hold on. Song Qingshu felt very guilty. He thought that since the important matter had been settled, he must treat them well and make up for what he owed them all these years. However, the most surprising thing was that the two women actually trained the navy of the Divine Dragon Island in good order. He knew that the adorable Mu Jianpain definitely didn't have this ability. The main credit probably belonged to Fang Yi. He had to admit that this woman was indeed very capable. After settling down on the Divine Dragon Island for 2 days and arranging everything, Song Qingshu went to Goryeo alone. Originally, Ajio, Xia Qingqing, and the others advised him not to take risks. After all, the son of a rich family shouldn't sit in a corner. Now that he had such a large force under his command, it was too dangerous to investigate these things in person. It was better to directly let the scouts investigate the news. However, Song Qingshu didn't agree because this matter was too important. The opportunity to deal with the Mongolians would definitely disappear in a flash. He didn't feel at ease leaving it to others. Moreover, the situation in Goryeo and the Sea of Japan was changing too fast. The scouts at the bottom level might not be able to respond in time. He also couldn't reveal too much information to them in case the secret was leaked. Therefore, after thinking about it, it was better to go personally. Ajio and the others knew that what he said made sense, so they could only constantly warn him to be careful. Then, Fang Yi arranged for him to go to the nearest port and boarded a Goryeo smuggling ship to Goryeo. With the current war situation in Goryeo, only these smuggling ships would often run, and this would also help to conceal their identities. After sailing for 2 days at sea, the captain mentioned to him that the weather at sea this year was a little abnormal. From time to time, they would encounter some bad weather. Song Qingshu was secretly happy, thinking that the heavens were really helping him. It seemed that Mongolia's luck was at its end. Who knew that at night, the ship would suddenly encounter a rare storm? Although the sailors on the ship tried their best to deal with it, human strength was too insignificant in front of the power of nature. In the end, the hull of the ship disintegrated in the raging waves. Although Song Qingshu had unparalleled cultivation, in this vast sea, there was no place for him to use it. He could only try his best to grab onto a board and drift with the waves, rowing in the direction where there was the most likely land. The storm lasted for an entire night. Even if Song Qingshu had a profound cultivation, he was still exhausted after persisting in the waves for such a long time. Finally, he saw that he was washed to the beach of an island before he finally breathed a sigh of relief. Before closing his eyes, he vaguely saw a beautiful white figure walking towards him on the beach. He couldn't help but feel a little absurd. It seems that I'm really too tired and have hallucinations. How could I possibly meet her here? A deep sense of tiredness came over him, and he slowly closed his eyes. Everyone can guess who this white figure is. In addition, it's the beginning of the month. I should ask for monthly tickets for my new book, The Fairy of Land. Last month, I was quite diligent in updating it. I should be able to get monthly tickets with a minimum consumption, right? Chapter 25-21. In his daze, Song Qingshu suddenly sensed that something was gently rubbing his forehead and cheeks. Even though the other party's movements were very gentle, he was still startled. He instantly opened his eyes and prepared to capture the other party with a vigilant expression. At this critical moment, he was not sure if the other party was a friend or foe. He was not even sure if it was a human. It would be troublesome if it was a beast or something. However, when he saw the other party's appearance, his movements stopped abruptly and his face was full of disbelief. At this time, he was lying in a cave and beside him sat a girl wearing a thin white veil. Other than her black hair, her whole body was snow white, and her face was beautiful beyond compare. She was like a fairy who had descended from the heavens. Who else could it be but Xiao Longnu, whom he had not seen for a long time? Suddenly, he thought of something, and his heart skipped a beat. Am I dead? He could not help but think this way. It was too unbelievable. This should be a deserted island near Goryeo. He had arrived here by chance in the vast sea. How could Xiao Longnu appear here thousands of miles away? He thought that he had died in the previous storm, so he saw the person he wanted to see. He could not help but panic. The late emperor died halfway through his career. For some reason, this sentence appeared in his mind. He was ambitious to do something big, and he was about to succeed, but in the end he died at such a young age. And those beautiful female friends of mine, wouldn't they all be widowed at a young age? Seeing his face turn pale, the girl in white opposite him showed a puzzled look. Brother Song, what are you talking about? Hearing the familiar voice, Song Qing-shu was stunned, and then a surge of great joy surged in his heart. He grabbed the girl's hand. Although it was a little cold, it still felt warm and fragrant. Longer, is it really you? If not me, who is it? Xiao Longnu blinked and looked a little confused. Obviously, she did not know why he asked such a question. She wanted to pull her hand back, but he held it so tightly that she could not move. Song Qing-shu quickly sat up and excitedly held her in his arms. The girl's body was quite delicate, and in his arms, she was like a willow catkin. Long, I haven't heard from you all these years. I thought I would never see you again. Suddenly being hugged by him, Xiao Longnu's pale face blushed. She subconsciously wanted to push him away, but seeing his true feelings, she bit her lips and raised her hands to hug him back. Suddenly, a sharp pain came from her chest, and she couldn't help but cry out and cover her chest. What's wrong with you? Song Qing-shu asked hurriedly when he sensed her abnormality. Xiao Longnu furrowed her brows and clutched her chest. It took her a while to regain her composure. She looked a little haggard. It's nothing. I've just been poisoned by the passion flower. This was not the first time she had been poisoned, so her tone was rather calm. Passion flower poison? Song Qing-shu was stunned. How did you get poisoned by this? This was indeed puzzling. It must be known that Xiao Longnu and Yang Hua had been tortured by this poison before. It was understandable that they did not know about the passion flower at first, but they had already been poisoned before. How did they get poisoned again? Xiao Longnu blushed and shook her head. I was poisoned by accident. Seeing that she was not giving any details, Song Qing-shu knew that it would be difficult to get anything out of her if he asked her directly. He rolled his eyes and changed his strategy. This is close to Goryeo. Why are you here? Xiao Longnu answered. I was injured and fell into the water and fell into a coma. I was saved by the Goryeo ambassadors who were passing by. So, I followed them all the way back to Goryeo. Goryeo ambassadors? Song Qing-shu thought that there was no such thing as a Goryeo ambassadors in the Central Plains. Suddenly, he thought of something and asked with a strange expression, is there a pair of sisters with the surname Fu in the Goryeo ambassadors who saved you? Xiao Longnu made a sound of surprise. How did you know? Song Qing-shu suddenly understood. Calculating the time, it should be the Fu sisters who had left Xixia to find a husband and save her on their way back to China. It seemed that good people really had good karma. He saved the Fu sisters and helped the Goryeo ambassadors, and then they saved Xiao Longnu. Otherwise, they would have been separated forever. But with your martial arts, how did you get injured so badly? Song Qing-shu thought that Xiao Longnu could use the dual sword harmony skill, so even if she encountered a grandmaster, she would not be weak. How could she be injured and fall into the water? At first, Xiao Longnu did not want to tell him, but she could not resist Song Qing-shu's incessant questioning, so she told him the whole story. It turned out that when they were on Mount Wudong, Xiao Longnu found out about the relationship between Song Qing-shu and Li Qingluo. She was sad and left quietly, thinking that she would never see him again in this life. She heard that he was in Jiangnan. She purposely ran towards the north to put some distance between them. Later, when she was near Mao Heng, she met Ho Shibai. Ho Shibai was shocked by her beauty and started to pursue her crazily. Unfortunately, Xiao Longnu had experienced the vast ocean and could not be moved by water. How could she like him? Ho Shibai's pursuit was fruitless. He, who had always been a gentleman, even had crazy ideas because of Xiao Longnu's beauty. He wanted to use force to capture her and then slowly reform her. However, Xiao Longnu used the dual sword harmony skill to beat him up. In order to save his life, he revealed a piece of information about Song Qingshu. He said that there were masters from Mongolia who went to the Passionless Valley to ask for passion flowers to deal with Song Qingshu. After all, if a Dumas like Song Qingshu was poisoned by the passion flowers, he would be better off dead than alive. Even though Xiao Longnu was angry at Song Qingshu's actions, she was still worried about Song Qingshu's safety. She decided to go to the Passionless Valley. She traveled day and night, and at the Passionless Valley, she met a Mongolian master who was picking passion flowers. At first, it was fine. Even Jinlun Fuwang was no match for her dual sword harmony skill, let alone a normal Mongolian master. However, a mysterious man wearing a mask appeared. The man's martial arts were ridiculously high, and Xiao Longnu was quickly defeated. She accidentally fell into the passion flowers and was stabbed by the passion flowers. She had no choice but to escape. Even though her lightness skill was very high, she could not shake off the man. She chased after him all the way until she fell into a river off a cliff. Only then did the man give up. Xiao Longnu was poisoned and severely injured. She fell into a coma after falling into the water. She thought that she was going to die, but when she woke up, she found that she had been rescued by someone on a boat. She found out from the two beautiful sisters that they were the ambassadors from Goryeo. The crown prince of Goryeo was accompanying them, but she could see that there were not many of them. Xiao Longnu wanted to leave and inform Song Qingshu about the passion flowers, but her injuries were too severe and she could not move freely. Furthermore, the boat had been sailing down the river to the sea, so she had no choice but to return to Goryeo with the Fu sisters while she recuperated from her injuries. The crown prince of Goryeo was originally impatient to save a Han, but when he saw Xiao Longnu's extraordinary beauty, he was immediately shocked. Not only did he agree, he often came to ask about her well-being and fawned over her. Luckily, the Fu sisters were watching over him, so he did not dare to do anything rash. Later on, when Xiao Longnu's injuries healed, the crown prince of Goryeo did not have much of a chance. Of course, Xiao Longnu was a kind person. After all, he had saved her life, so she was very grateful to him. Song Qingshu thought to himself, that stinky brat actually dares to have the idea of hitting Xiao Longnu. It seems that the bitterness he suffered in Western Xiao wasn't enough to teach him a lesson. However, when he looked at Xiao Longnu's beautiful face, he thought to himself, if it were me, I probably wouldn't be able to control myself. Oh yes, what kind of martial arts does the masked man use? Song Qingshu had a guess. Xiao Longnu roughly described it with her hands. Song Qingshu said in a deep voice, it really is him. Who is it? Xiao Longnu asked curiously. Only then did Song Qingshu explain the grudge between him and Venerable Ming. On the surface, Venerable Ming seemed to be allies with him against the Mongols, but he was secretly preparing a way to deal with him. The passion flower was indeed a very effective way. If Venerable Ming had not been seriously injured by Temujin and the others, he would have already attacked me. It seems that I really need to be more careful in the future. Although my cultivation is high enough, it is easier to dodge a spear in the open than a stab in the dark. Don't worry, Long Air. Although Gong Sun Ji and Xiao Qianxi are dead, the poison of the passion flower is not incurable. The Gelsemium elegans can counteract poison with poison, and the white fish in the cold pond at the bottom of the Passionless Valley can also detoxify the poison. Song Qingshu comforted her. Brother Song, you even know this? Xiao Longnu's tone carried a hint of admiration. The other seemed to be omniscient and omnipotent, and nothing could trouble him. Song Qingshu smiled and asked, since you were rescued by the Goryeo ambassadors, why are you on this isolated island? Xiao Longnu's expression darkened. Because something happened in Goryeo. Listening to her story, Song Qingshu's expression changed several times, but he finally understood the current situation of Goryeo. It turned out that during the marriage contest in Western Xia, he had pretended to be Fu Kailin and slaughtered Zulwu's ambassadors. Temujin was furious, but the Mongols were preparing to deal with the tribes of the western regions at the time and could not find the time to deal with them. Thus, Temujin sent his younger brother Hezer's eldest son, Jegu, to Goryeo with a 10,000-man army to pressure them to punish the murderer. However, the Mongols' smooth sailing in recent years had made Jegu arrogant. To him, a small border country like Goryeo was nothing, so his attitude was extremely bad. Not long after, he led his army to attack Goryeo. A few years ago, the Mongols could sweep the western countries with a 10,000-man army, so Goryeo was nothing to them. Unfortunately, Goryeo's terrain was rugged and mountainous, making it difficult for their cavalry to use their full strength. Jegu attacked for several months without gaining any advantage. In the end, the guru of Goryeo, Kailin, took action and killed Jegu during the chaos. The Mongol army suffered a great defeat. When the Mongols heard this news, they were all furious. In addition, they were preparing to conquer Dong-ing and needed Goryeo as a springboard. So, Kublai and Ali Buj mobilized their armies and attacked Goryeo. The Demon Master Pangban personally fought against the Bright Sword Master Fu Kailin. After a great battle, both sides suffered heavy losses. However, the Mongols had many masters and famous generals. When Fu Kailin was seriously injured, the morale of the Goryeo army was greatly reduced. How could they hold on? Seeing that the Mongols were getting closer, the high-ranking official of Goryeo, Chuiyu, could not resist. Coupled with his old age, he died of depression. This was because his son-in-law, Jin Ruoxian, and even his son, Cui Shi, had died during the marriage contest in Western Xia. His remaining sons were even worse. Once the successor took power, the people's hearts began to waver. The retainer of the Chui clan, Jin Renjun, launched a coup and killed the Chui clan. He replaced the Chui clan and negotiated peace with the Mongols. Song Qingshu had seen this Jin Renjun before during the marriage contest in Western Xia. Now that he thought about it, although Jin Ruoxian and Cui Shi were killed by the Dongying people, he might have played a part in it. After Jin Renjun took power, he changed his attitude of opposing the Mongols. Instead, he submitted to them. The Mongols had many years of war. As long as the enemy was willing to submit, they would be happy to accept it. However, a new problem soon appeared. Because the king of Goryeo died during the coup, the throne of Goryeo was now vacant. Kublai and Ali Buj had a disagreement on who to appoint as the new king. Ali Buj supported the crown prince, Wang Qi, while Kublai supported the crown prince's younger brother, Duke Wang Qi at first. Song Qingshu was curious why Kublai, as the elder brother, would support his younger brother. He was fighting with Ali Buj for the right to inherit the throne. Wouldn't this be giving the enemy an excuse? However, he soon understood. Back then, the crown prince of Goryeo, Wang Qi, was humiliated by Sulyewu during the marriage contest in Western Xia. Sulyewu was on good terms with Kublai, so he was worried that Wang Qi would hate him and not dare to support him. Instead, he supported his younger brother. Duke Wang Qi Ali Buj was naturally happy to support the crown prince. The two of them argued until their faces were red, and neither could convince the other. After that, Goryeo was divided into two factions. One faction supported the crown prince, while the other faction supported Duke Wang Qi. Guru Kailin, who had a high status in Goryeo, didn't express his opinion. He gathered his people and stayed in his residence, maintaining a neutral attitude. However, one day, when Ali Buj accepted the crown prince's invitation to attend a banquet in the city, a riot suddenly occurred in the city. A group of mysterious people rushed into the hall and killed Ali Buj and the crown prince. Ali Buj had many experts by his side, and there were even quite a few grandmasters among them. However, they couldn't protect him. It was obvious that there was a grandmaster among the group of people. Someone recognized the bright sword technique among them, and they quickly pointed the finger at Fu Kailin. Because of Ali Buj's death, The Mongolians were furious. The army entered the city and pointed their weapons at the Bright Sword Pavilion. Countless experts and soldiers swarmed over. Even Fu Kalen couldn't hold them off, let alone when he was seriously injured. Xiaolong Nu also joined the battle because she was grateful to the Fu sisters and the Crown Prince of Goryeo for saving her life. Unfortunately, her strength alone was limited. Although the disciples of the Bright Sword Pavilion tried their best to resist, they were still no match for them. Fu Kalen died in battle, and Xiaolong Nu could only barely save Fu Junxian. The Fu sisters broke out of the encirclement and originally planned to escape to the Central Plains by sea. However, the Mongolian army and Duke Wang Qi's troops chased after them all the way. Although a storm stopped the troops from chasing after them, they were also separated. Xiaolong Nu was brought to this deserted island by the waves. She was trapped here for a few days. Fortunately, the island didn't lack food and water, so she survived. One day, when she was looking at the beach, she happened to save Song Qing-shu. After listening to her experience, Song Qing-shu couldn't help but click his tongue in wonder. He thought to himself that everyone's life was quite interesting. It was just that he had neglected these things in the past. A reader, Floating Tears, kept trying to convince me to let the main character be poisoned by the love flower poison. However, I felt that the main character knew that the Gelsemium elegans could cure it and that the love flower poison was meaningless to him. However, when he wrote about Xiaolong Nu, he suddenly thought that he could add this plot to her so that her appearance in Goryeo would be more reasonable. I have to thank this reader for giving me this inspiration. Chapter 25-22. But why do I feel like Kublai was the one who caused Ali Buj's death? Song Qing-shu thought about it and realized that Kublai was the one who benefited the most from Ali Buj's death. Originally, when Kublai and Ali Buj fought against each other, their strengths were about the same. Kublai had more people under his command, but because of the Mongolian rule that the youngest son of Ali Buj was the most elite of the Mongolian armies, the two of them had never been able to determine a winner after so many years. Who knew that Ali Buj would suddenly die in Goryeo? The scales of victory instantly tilted towards Kublai. However, Song Qing-shu was most worried about something else. When he tried to assassinate Temujin using his identity as a member of the Shueiyue clan, he successfully caused the Mongolians to invade the east. This was mainly because Kublai and Ali Buj wanted to take revenge for Temujin in order to fight for the throne. But now that Ali Buj was dead, the throne was already in Kublai's hands. Would he still go to Dongying? Yes, the Fu sisters said that the people from the Bright Sword Pavilion didn't even try to assassinate Ali Buj. Unfortunately, no one listened to their explanation. The angry Mongolians killed everyone they saw. Even though Xiaolong Nu had a calm and collected personality, she still frowned when she remembered the brutality of the Mongolian warriors. We have to find a way to leave this island and go to Goryeo to help. Song Qing-shu stood up. When you were brought here by the storm, is your boat still there? Seeing Xiaolong Nu shake her head, he couldn't help but complain, Goryeo's man-made boat technology is really lousy. The Goryeo smuggling boat he was on was destroyed by the storm. The Goryeo boat that Xiaolong Nu was on couldn't withstand the storm either. If it wasn't lousy, then what was it? Then I'll go see if there are any materials on the island that can be used to make a raft. Song Qing-shu was very anxious. He had planned for so long to defeat the Mongolian army. He didn't want everything to go to waste because of this accident. But your injury? Xiaolong Nu asked hurriedly. Song Qing-shu smiled. Don't worry, I'm fine. I'm just a little tired from fighting the waves. If you're worried about me, why don't you help me? He opened his arms and looked at her with a smile. Xiaolong Nu hesitated for a moment, but still lowered her head and snuggled into his arms. She let his hands wrap around her shoulders and helped him up. Song Qing-shu did not expect that she would be so obedient and could not help but be overjoyed. Looking at her beautiful face that was so close to his, her skin was so soft that it could be broken with a blow. He could not help but lean forward and kiss her. Xiaolong Nu looked at him reproachfully. Just as she was about to say something, she suddenly screamed and squatted on the ground, clutching her chest. What's wrong? Is the love flower poison acting up again? Song Qing-shu immediately reacted and hurriedly put his hand to check her pulse. As the saying goes, a long illness makes one a doctor. Over the years, he's been injured and poisoned. Now he can barely be considered a famous doctor in this aspect. Xiao Longnu nodded. Song Qing-shu smiled. Although it's not a good thing, I'm really a little happy right now. Xiao Longnu was stunned and asked in confusion, Why are you happy? Song Qing-shu held her hands and gently looked into her eyes. Because you have been poisoned by the love flower poison. The poison will only take effect when you think of the person you love. After you saw me today, you felt pain several times in a row, proving that I am the person you love. How can I not be happy? Xiao Longnu blushed and sighed softly. I know what you're worried about. To be honest, I couldn't tell my own heart from the beginning until I was poisoned by the love flower poison. At first, when I thought of Gora, my heart would hurt, but every time I thought of you, it would hurt even more. In the past few months in Korea, it gradually didn't hurt as much when I thought of Gora. Instead, it hurt more and more when I thought of you. I knew that I would not be able to leave you. I originally wanted to go back to Jiangnan to find you, but something happened in Korea and I couldn't leave them, so I delayed it until now. Song Qing-shu was overjoyed and excitedly held her in his arms. Longer, I will never let you leave me again. It hurts, Xiao Longnu said, feeling wronged. Song Qing-shu hurriedly let go of her. I'm sorry. Before I find the antidote for you, I will do my best not to make you fall in love. Xiao Longnu nodded and smiled sweetly. She was like a beautiful flower that had just been born. She was so beautiful that even Song Qing-shu, who was used to seeing beautiful women, couldn't help but be stunned. After that, Song Qing-shu and Xiao Longnu strolled around the island. In fact, Xiao Longnu had already explored the island before and was already quite familiar with the terrain of the island. She acted as a guide and took him to familiarize himself with the island. Along the way, the two chatted and told each other what had happened after they parted. The journey was not boring at all. Soon, they found a forest. Although he did not have any tools, Song Qing-shu's sword Qi was sharper than any divine weapon. Soon, he chopped down some trees and used them to make a raft. Xiao Longnu used the bark of the trees to weave ropes. The two cooperated with each other and did their own work. They worked at sunrise and rested at sunset, just like a man farming and a woman weaving. To Xiao Longnu, she even felt that it was not bad for the two of them to live on this isolated island. There were only the two of them in the whole world. However, the responsibility on Song Qing-shu's shoulders was too heavy. He could not stay on the island leisurely. He worked overtime to make the raft. The two of them set out to sea together. However, not long after they set out, a huge wave came and the raft fell apart. The two of them fell into the sea. Song Qing-shu hurriedly swam back to the shore with Xiao Longnu in his arms. Looking at the wood that had been washed away by the waves, he could not help but smile bitterly. I was competing with the Koreans' shipbuilding skills. I didn't expect the quality of the raft to be so poor. Xiao Longnu comforted him. We have experience. We could try a few more times. I'm sure we'll be able to do better. Song Qing-shu grunted and lay on the beach weakly. He looked up at the sky and the cliffs nearby. Suddenly, he saw a pale yellow color. He was stunned at first, but then he was overjoyed. Longer, look, what is that? Ah, Xiao Longnu did not understand. Song Qing-shu did not have time to explain. Wait here for me. Then, he tiptoed and climbed up the cliff like a bird. He plucked a yellow flower from the cliff and returned to Xiao Longnu's side. This is? Xiao Longnu asked in confusion. Song Qing-shu laughed. This is the Gelsemium elegans. There's a cure for the poison in your body. Back then, he was afraid of the golden wave flower. After that, he went to study the various poisons in his memory. The love flower poison was definitely one of the most important ones. After all, he was quite familiar with his own temper. If he was really poisoned by the love flower poison, he would definitely be tortured. Therefore, he went to see the Gelsemium elegans and asked Ouyang Feng about its medicinal properties and usage. These days, Song Qing-shu could only watch helplessly as the frequency of Xiao Longnu's poison became more and more frequent. Thinking that it was because of him, Song Qing-shu felt guilty and wanted to take her away from here to find the antidote as soon as possible. However, he did not expect that there would be Gelsemium elegans on the island. Because it grew on the cliffs, he did not find it when he searched the entire island. Now that I think about it, it was a blessing in disguise that the raft broke up this time. Song Qing-shu looked excited. A faint smile appeared on Xiao Longnu's face. She did not have to worry about the poison acting up in the future. This Gelsemium elegans is also highly toxic, so you have to be careful when using it. Song Qing-shu's face was solemn as he explained the usage and dosage to her. However, he was still worried and personally mixed the dosage for her. Then he reached out and sealed her Xiaohai, Tongli, Shunmin, and Xiaochong acupoints to protect her heart meridian before letting her eat it. As soon as it entered her mouth, Xiao Longnu frowned. She felt that the Gelsemium elegans was extremely smelly and bitter, far worse than the yellow lotus. However, she trusted Song Qing-shu and knew that he would not lie to her, so she endured it and swallowed it. After a while, she felt a sudden movement in her abdomen, followed by a great pain. The pain was as if thousands of steel needles were stabbing her abdomen at the same time, as if her intestines were being torn apart. The two words Gelsemium elegans were not empty words. However, she was not surprised. Instead, she was happy because this was the same reaction that Song Qing-shu had mentioned to her before. She gritted her teeth and endured it. After about the time it took to drink a cup of tea, the pain spread throughout her entire body. Her limbs and bones were all affected by the tea poison. Fortunately, Song Qing-shu was by her side, using his strong inner energy to protect her vital meridians. That was why she was not harmed by the Gelsemium elegans. The pain lasted for almost an hour before she felt the pain gradually return to her abdomen. At this time, Song Qing-shu's inner energy was circulating throughout her body. Now that his inner energy was no different from his hands, he could clearly feel the changes in her body. In this hour, he had already figured out the principle behind the passion flower poison. In other words, he had already used the Gelsemium elegans to fight poison with poison and found out where the passion flower poison was in her body. In fact, the passion flower poison had already spread throughout her internal organs and even some of her meridians. If it was someone else, even if they knew about it, they would not be able to do anything. However, with Song Qing-shu's cultivation level, he immediately used his vast inner energy to gather the passion flower poison in her body bit by bit. Finally, he forced it out together with the Gelsemium elegans. Xiao Longnu let out a cry and spat out a few mouthfuls of blood. Every mouthful of blood was bright red, much brighter than the blood of an ordinary person. Song Qing-shu's face lit up with joy. All right, the passion flower poison in your body has been completely removed. Xiao Longnu could not help but stretch out her hand to wipe away the fine sweat on his forehead. These few hours, you've used up a lot of your inner energy to force the poison out of me. It's been hard on you. Song Qing-shu was stunned. Only then did he realize that the sky had already darkened. It turned out that he had been concentrating on forcing the poison out of her body for so long that he did not realize how much time had passed. As long as I can force the poison out of you, this little bit of hard work is nothing. Originally, the intestine-severing grass needed to be consumed continuously for about a month before the poison could be completely eradicated. Although there were still a few stalks of intestine-severing grass on the cliff, they were definitely not enough for a month. Furthermore, even if there were enough, according to what Ouyang Feng had said before, fighting poison with poison would still cause hidden dangers to the body. Song Qing-shu naturally did not want Xiao Longnu to be in any danger, so he used an exaggerated amount of inner energy to forcefully force the passion flower poison out of her body. The sky was dark, and the wind by the sea was gradually getting stronger. He suddenly noticed that Xiao Longnu's body was trembling slightly. He hurriedly said, "Look at my memory. Earlier, we were both soaking in the water. You were completely soaked, but I only cared about removing the poison from your body. You must have been very cold during this period of time. Xiaolong Nu shook her head. Just now, when your inner energy was in my body, it was warm, but not warm at all. In fact, it's a little cold now. Song Qing did not notice it before, but now he realized that her clothes were completely soaked. Her wet clothes were tightly wrapped around her delicate body and had already become translucent. Her entire body seemed even more exquisite and graceful. He did not expect Long Air's figure to be so good. Xiao Long Nu saw that he was staring at her in a daze. She lowered her head and let out a cry of surprise. Her face was completely red, and her heart, which was usually as calm as an ancient well, was now beating wildly. Brother Song, can you turn around? Song Qingshu's face heated up. He hurriedly took off his coat and draped it over her body to block the view in front of him. Just now, he had circulated his inner energy at full force, and the heat in his body had already evaporated his clothes. It's already late. Let's go back to the cave first. Because Xiao Long Nu had just forced the poison out of her body was still a little weak. Song Qingshu directly grabbed her legs and carried her back to the cave. Soon, he started a fire to dry her clothes. Because they had also been stranded on this deserted island before, Xiao Long Nu did not have any clothes to change into. She could only separate the two of them with a rack and dry the clothes on it to block each other's sight. The two of them did not speak. The air in the cave seemed to be filled with a kind of ambiguous atmosphere. It was so quiet that only the crackling of the firewood could be heard. After a while, Xiao Long Nu said, "Brother Song, it's very cold here in Korea. Now it's starting to snow outside. If you give me your clothes, what will you do?" At this time, her clothes were drying on the rack. Although she was wrapped in Song Qingshu's coat, her two slender and well-proportioned thighs were completely exposed. Her skin was snow-white and delicate, even more exquisite than the best mutton fat white jade. Song Qingshu said with a smile, "Don't worry. I have a lot of internal energy. I can bear it. But the campfire is also on my side. You gave me all the good stuff." Xiaolong Nu bit her lip. "Why don't you come over and warm yourself by the fire? At least it'll be warmer." Song Qingshu was stunned. "Is that convenient?" As soon as he said that, he wanted to slap himself. Previously, he had concluded that he was too inactive in front of Xiao Long Nu. In the end, the opportunity was right in front of him, but he pretended to be a gentleman. The other side fell into silence. After a long time, she said, "You can turn your back to me." Song Qingshu was overjoyed. He did not say anything else and directly trotted over. "Brother Song, you promised to turn your back to me." Xiao Long Nu quietly wrapped herself in the coat, but she did not know where to put her legs. Song Qingshu's breathing suddenly quickened. He slowly came to her side and sat down. He gently held her hand. "Long I won't let you leave me again." Xiao Long Nu nodded and replied with a blushing face. Song Qingshu reached out and hooked her jade-like chin. He slowly kissed her. Xiao Long Nu's eyelashes trembled slightly. Her eyes instantly became flustered. However, after a while, she slowly closed her eyes. Receiving the consent of the beauty, Song Qingshu could not help but be overjoyed. He passionately kissed her. Xiao Long Nu gently hugged him. Unfortunately, she did not know how to respond. She could only passively let him do whatever he wanted. After a long time, looking at the beautiful girl's dazzling and enchanting eyes, Song Qingshu felt a little guilty. He hurriedly said, "This was taught to me by your ancestor grandma." "Ah, you, an ancestor grandma." Xiao Long Nu's beautiful face changed slightly. Only then did Song Qingshu realize the ambiguity in his words. He hurriedly explained, "That's not what I mean. It's because of her and Wang Chongyang's regret. She is worried that we will repeat the same mistakes. Last time, she even taught me to be more proactive towards you." He then told her about the incident at the Lin family. Xiao Long Nu revealed a faint smile. "Actually, you don't need to use ancestor grandma as a shield. These past few months, I have been poisoned by the passion flower poison. I have long recognized my feelings for you. So, even if you really want to do something to me, I will not refuse, A young girl as beautiful as a fairy in his arms was expressing her feelings. It was more powerful than the most potent aphrodisiac in the world. How could Song Qing-shu hold back? He pulled the young girl in his arms and kissed her again, his breathing ragged. With a moan, Xiao Longnu hugged her sweetheart on top of her. Her longing for him in the past was completely ignited by him. She responded to him gently like water. She took the opportunity to lie down on a pile of straw at the side. Feeling the weight of the man on top of her, she felt shy and lustful. Her entire body became soft and tender. Song Qing-shu felt as if all the bones in her body had melted. Her entire body was so soft and delicate that it was even softer and more delicate than the most expensive cushions in the palace. How could he hold back any longer? He pressed himself on top of her and became one with her. You're the most beautiful dream in my heart. No, you're the dream of many people. It's just that I'm the only lucky one. Xiao Longnu's eyes were brimming with tears. The pain she had just experienced had been dissolved by his affectionate words of love. A pair of beautiful starry eyes gazed at her man with deep affection. Her mouth was left with the sweetest and most delicate whisper, Song Lang. It was a quiet night. There was no need for any words. Any other man would not waste time on talking. All that was left was the most primal instinct. Passion and lust, soul and flesh. The next morning, Xiao Longnu was lying softly in Song Qingshu's arms. The two of them were confiding in each other. Suddenly, a woman's voice sounded from afar. Sister, there's a cave over there. Let's go and see if Lady Long is there. Let's shout along the way. Young Lady Long, are you there? Another pleasant female voice sounded. Hearing this voice, Xiao Longnu immediately sat up straight. Her beautiful body was exposed to the air. She said in a flustered tone, Aya, it's the Fu sisters. Let's get dressed quickly. Fu Junxian and Fu Junyu. Song Qingshu also recognized them. He did not expect to be reunited with them so soon. His anger at being disturbed instantly disappeared. Not long after the two of them got dressed, two pretty figures barged into the cave. Lady Long, are you really here? Why didn't you respond to us just now? Who is this man? Fu Junyu's eyes were sharp. She immediately noticed Song Qingshu behind her. I'm looking for monthly votes for my new book, The Fairy of Land. Chapter 25-23. Xiao Longnu blushed. He is my husband. Ah! Fu Junyu cried out in surprise. She hurriedly came to Song Qingshu's side and looked him up and down. You're Song Qingshu? Even Fu Junyi, who was at the side, looked at him curiously. You know me? Song Qingshu stared blankly for a moment. He remembered that he had used the identity of Jia Baoyu to meet them in Xixia. In addition, he was secretly delighted. When Xiao Longnu introduced him as her husband, Fu Junyu immediately realized that she must have mentioned it in front of the sisters. I have heard of your name before, Fu Junyu said excitedly. When I went to Xixia last time, I specially asked the Southern Song Dynasty's diplomatic mission to inquire about you. Unfortunately, you didn't go that time. Oh yes, Song Qingshu did not expect to meet them at this time. For a moment, he was not sure whether he should recognize them or not. After all, he had just been intimate with Xiao Longnu. If he recognized them, would it be a little awkward? At this time, Xiao Longnu introduced them to him. They're the Fu sisters that I mentioned to you before. This is the elder sister, Fu Junyi, and this is the younger sister, Fu Junyu. Hello. Song Qingshu thought, how can I not know them? Hello, Fu Junyi nodded slightly in greeting. She then tugged at her younger sister to calm her down. Xiao Longnu could not help but ask, how did you get here? Fu Junyi explained, after we were separated at sea that night, we were rescued by General Li Shunshun, who was passing by. Then, we have been searching for you in the nearby waters these days. We thought that you were highly skilled in martial arts and should be blessed by the heavens. We searched every island and finally found you. Li Sun-sin, Song Qingshu was stunned. He was the first famous general in the history of Korea. When the Japanese invaded, his navy completely defeated the Japanese navy and together with the Ming army, drove the Japanese army back to their hometown. Do you know General Lee? Fu Junyi was a little puzzled. I don't know him. To avoid trouble, Song Qing-shu directly denied it. Fu Junyi then held on to Xiao Long Nu's hand and said, Miss Long, now that we have confirmed that you are safe and sound, we are completely at ease and can return to Kaijing to take revenge. Revenge? Xiao Long Nu was confused. Fu Junyu, who was at the side, said angrily, the Mongolians wrongly accused Master of assassinating their brother Ali Buj. They annihilated the entire Bright Sword Pavilion, and only a few of us managed to escape. How can we not take revenge for Master's murder and the annihilation of our sect? Apart from avenging our sect, we also have a responsibility to restore our country, Fu Junyi added. What's the situation like in Goryeo? What are the movements of the Mongolian army? This was what Song Qing-shu was most concerned about. His ship had crashed before he even reached Goryeo, and he was delayed on this island for a few days. He didn't know how Goryeo was doing. Fu Junyi thought that he was worried about her and her sister. She nodded slightly and replied, Don't worry, we aren't reckless people. If the Mongolian army was still in Goryeo, it would be like throwing an egg against a rock if we returned. However, Kublai has already led his army out to sea from Happu Harbor and crossed the Strait of Tsushima to attack Japan. Song Qing-shu had been studying the information on Goryeo and Japan. He knew that Happu Harbor was the future Pusan. After knowing that brother Ali Buj's death didn't affect the Mongolian army's journey, he was completely relieved. Fu Junyi continued. Kublai brought the fake Emperor Qi and a lot of high-ranking officials of Goryeo with him. He said that he wanted the king of Goryeo to personally lead the army, but in reality, he wanted to coerce the Goryeo army to attack Japan. Right now, the traitor Jin Renjun is staying at Kaijing to guard the rear. Kublai also left his trusted General Bayan and chief advisor Liu Bingzhong behind to intimidate the other rebel forces and to take care of the logistics of their fleet. Song Qing-shu couldn't help but say, although Kublai took away most of the Mongolian army, he also took away a lot of Goryeo's army. Bayan is a famous general, Liu Bingzhong is a top official, and Jin Renjun's group is also involved. I don't think you two and Li Sun-sin alone will be able to take revenge. Bayan was the most famous general under Kublai's command. In history, he was the general who destroyed the Song dynasty. Later on, he went north to fight against the rebellious Haidu. He was invincible. Fu Junyi's face darkened. According to you people from the Central Plains, there's a saying, do what you know is impossible. Now that our country has fallen, we have nothing to lose. This is our best chance. If we wait until the Mongolians return after conquering Japan, we will have even less hope. Fu Junyi pouted. It's a pity that heartless Jia Bayu didn't come to save us. He sent the letter for so long, but he didn't respond at all. Song Qing-shu was a little embarrassed. He rubbed his nose and said, Actually, I was sent by Jia Bayu to help you. Huh? Fu Junyi was shocked, not to mention Fu Junyi. But you're the king of Qi in the great song, and Jia Bayu is just a playboy. What right does he have to send you here? Fu Junyi was the more meticulous one and reacted quickly. Song Qing-shu explained, I am Jia Baoyu's good friend. Also, the Mongolians are not in the Great Song's interest, so I came here personally. Fu Junyi immediately jumped up in joy and grabbed her sister's hand. Sister, I knew it. Baoyu won't forget us. Yes, Fu Junyi replied. Her face was a little red, and she was obviously very excited. Song Qing-shu sighed. It seemed that the two sisters had fallen too deeply into Baoyu's hands. He didn't know how they would react when they found out the truth. With this relationship, the Fu sisters looked at Song Qing-shu more and more kindly and didn't hide any of their plans from him. Xiao Long Nu had been on good terms with them these days, so she was naturally happy to help. In the Fu sisters and Li Xuanxin's plan, because the enemy was outnumbered, they had to first capture the leader. They would first assassinate Boyan, Liu Bingzhong, and Jin Renjun, leaving the Mongolians without a leader. Then, Li Xuanxin would lead the volunteer army and charge in during the chaos. Only then would they have a chance. Now that they had Song Qing-shu, he sent a letter for Agio, Ching Ching, and the others to rush over with the navy. That way, they would have a greater chance. Of course, he also agreed with the other party's plan to capture the leader first. Taking care of Boyan and the other leaders first would make the subsequent battles much easier. However, there was another problem in sneaking into Kaijing. The Fu sisters were too famous in Goryeo. Not only were they the disciples of the great master, Kai Lin, they were also very beautiful. It could be said that they were the national goddesses of Goryeo. No matter where they went, they would be recognized. Therefore, it would be difficult for the two girls to sneak into Kaijing and assassinate Boyan and the others without anyone noticing. Besides, Xiaolong Nu was a peerless beauty, and she would be the center of attention wherever she went. Therefore, if they wanted to enter the city, they would probably be discovered by Boyan's subordinates at the city gates. However, this was not a problem for Song Qingshu. He was a master of disguise, and he quickly disguised the appearances of the three girls. Although they still looked beautiful, they were no longer as eye-catching. Compared to Xiaolong Nu, who was used to it, the Fu sisters were much more surprised. Looking at their new appearance, they couldn't help but click their tongues in wonder. "Can you disguise yourself as anyone?" Fu Junyu asked curiously as she admired herself in the bronze mirror. "More or less." Song Qingshu nodded. "Amazing." Fu Junyu didn't think too much about it, but Fu Junyu was deep in thought. The four of them sneaked into Kaijing. The current Kaijing was much more desolate than usual, and the people who passed by all looked uneasy. Song Qingshu took a look and couldn't help but sigh inwardly. Goryeo's city walls and residences were much shorter and shabbier than the countries in the Central Plains. It was indeed determined by the country's strength. The four of them decided to deal with Boyan and Liu Bingzhong first. After all, Jin Renjun was just a puppet. The real masters of Kaijing were Boyan and Liu Bingzhong. Because of the special circumstances of the war, the two of them were staying in the same general's mansion. It was both a residence and an office. The group came to a high place near the general's mansion and looked down. They planned to take a look at the defense there, but they suddenly noticed that it was already a mess inside. Two different groups of people were really fighting. "Are they your people?" Song Qingshu couldn't help but ask the Fu sisters. "I don't think so." The Fu sisters were also confused. Song Qingshu looked carefully and suddenly heard a familiar voice. It was the leader of the Destiny cult, Dan Yuru. He didn't expect to see her here in Goryeo. By now, he could roughly guess what was going on. It was probably Ali Buge's old subordinates who were dissatisfied with their lord's death and were taking advantage of the fact that Kublai's main force wasn't here to rebel. However, Boyan was a famous general and was clearly prepared. It's Jin Luan Fuang," Xiaolong Nu suddenly exclaimed. She recognized one of the figures. It was obvious that she had a deep impression of the many times they had fought. Yes, Song Qingshu noticed that it wasn't just Jin Luan Fuang. There were also Bai Zizai, Xiao Xiangzi, Nimixing, Yin Kashi, and other experts. He couldn't help but feel confused. These were all Kublai's trusted guests. Was Kublai still here? But according to the Fu sisters and Li Xuanqin's intelligence, he had indeed brought his army to the east to conquer Dongying. At this time, Ali Buge's subordinates were clearly unable to hold on. Boyan was continuously sending out troops. Their numbers were getting smaller and smaller. Every single one of them was surrounded and attacked by several of Boyan's warriors. Song Qingshu was about to help them when he suddenly felt something. He raised his head and looked in a certain direction. He saw a white figure floating towards him. She was so beautiful that she didn't seem like a mortal woman. The Fu sisters instinctively looked towards Xiaolong Nu. The two of them were too similar. It wasn't that they looked similar. It was that cold and refined aura in the white dress. They gave off a very similar feeling. It's her? Why is she helping Dan Yuru's group? Song Qingshu couldn't help but feel surprised when he saw who the woman in white was attacking. It was obvious that he wasn't the only one who was confused. Jin Luan Fuang was both shocked and angry. "Lady Jin, why are you helping these rebels?" The woman in white was naturally Jin Bingyan. She said coldly, It's hard to say who the rebels are now. At this time, Boyan's orders came. The fourth prince has ordered that during these critical times, anyone who rebels will be killed. Whoever captures Jin Bingyun will be promoted by 3 ranks. Hearing this reward, the eyes of the warriors under his command lit up. They howled and rushed towards Jin Bingyun. Jinlun Fuang was the leader. Xiaoxiang Zi, Nimixing, and In Kashi were not to be left behind. Jin Bingyun was Pang Ban's disciple. Although her martial arts were high, Jinlun Fuang, Xiaoxiang Zi, and the others were able to suppress Guo Jing at his peak. If it weren't for her special movement techniques, she would have been heavily injured by the combined attacks of these experts. Even so, she was still in danger. Seeing that Dan Yuru and the others were about to collapse, Song Qingshu said in a deep voice, "I'll go save them. You guys go deal with Boyan and Lu Bingzhong." At this time, most of the experts were surrounding Jin Bingyun, Dan Yuru, and the others. In contrast, the defense around Boyan and the others was much weaker. Chapter 25-24. At this time, Jin Bingyun's sword was blocked by Jinlun Fuang's weapon. A cold smile flashed across Xiaoxiang Zi's skinny face. The morning stick in his hand swung towards her shoulder. Jin Bingyun bent her waist. Her entire body was like a willow tree branch, creating a possibility within the impossible and forcefully dodged the opponent's determined strike. Her entire posture was graceful, and her body was soft, as if there were no bones in it. Even though Jinlun Fuang was a monk, his eyes lit up when he saw her. Out of all the women he had seen in the past few years, Xiao Longnu was the only one with such high kung fu and such graceful movements. Just as Jin Bingyun let out a sigh of relief, a cloud of black smoke suddenly sprayed towards her face. She quickly moved to the side, but she still breathed in a little and immediately felt dizzy. Despicable. Jin Bingyun knew that this poison was powerful and quickly circulated her internal energy to force it out. But as soon as she circulated her internal energy, she felt weak all over. When Xiaoxiang Zi was practicing martial arts in the barren mountains of Hunan, he once saw a toad hiding behind a broken coffin and spitting out poisonous sand, poisoning a large python. He had an epiphany, so he caught the toad, extracted its poison, refined it into poisonous sand, and hid it within the morning stick. There was a mechanism at the end of the stick. With a press of his finger, the poisonous sand shot out. Ever since he learned this hidden weapon, he's only used it a few times. The last time he used it was when he and Jinlun Fuang worked together to fight Guo Jing. It was a pity that Guo Jing's kung fu was high, plus he had eaten the blood of a poisonous snake when he was young, so he had a certain resistance to poison, so the effect wasn't very good. This time Jin Bingyun wasn't so lucky. Very quickly the poison circulated through her entire body. Her entire body swayed, and she couldn't even stand properly. Nimixing gave a sinister laugh and reached out to grab her. He'd been drooling over this woman's beauty for a long time, but normally this woman from the Demon Master Palace was high and mighty, so they didn't dare to offend her. Now that the world has changed, he no longer had such concerns. Even if he couldn't really get her, he could still take advantage of this opportunity to satisfy his cravings. Jin Bingyun saw it clearly. She clenched her teeth and used the stimulation from the pain to clear her mind for a moment. She was about to stab back with her sword, but her reaction speed was much slower after being poisoned. Nimixing easily deflected her sword. Am I going to be humiliated by this despicable person today? Jin Bingyun was shocked and angry, but she had no other choice. Nimixing saw that his hand was about to grab the girl's breasts when he suddenly felt a sharp pain in his wrist. He was stunned at first, and then he watched as half of his wrist fell to the ground. Only then did he react and roll on the ground in pain. He originally lost a leg from the soul-freezing silver needle, and now his hand was broken, so was his entire body. He was completely crippled. Why don't you stay in India and drink the water of the Ganges River? Why must you come thousands of miles away to stir up trouble? A tall and straight figure supported the tottering Jin Bingyun, coldly looking at the wailing Nimixing on the ground. Jean Bingyun blinked her eyes in disbelief. Was she dreaming? Why would she meet this fellow in Galley? Jean, G and Yun and Jean and S, Li and Jean. However, the most powerful person in Galley, Fu Kalen, was already dead. The Bright Sword Pavilion had also been destroyed. How could there be any other experts? Jean Bingyun and Een Kashi's weapons were broken, and Fu Kalen, the most powerful person in Jean, was dead, and the Bright Sword Pavilion was destroyed. A cold snort resounded. The imagined scene of the opponent's muscles and bones breaking did not appear. Instead, the weapons in Xiaoxiang Zi's and Een Kashi's hands broke into several pieces. Then, the two of them spat out mouthfuls of blood and flew upside down, no longer breathing. Everything happened in the blink of an eye, and Jinluan Fuwang saw the person's face clearly. He was shocked. Song Qingshu, why are you here? If you can be here, why can't I? Song Qingshu smiled and looked at Jean Bingyun, who was in his arms. Miss Jean, we meet again. It's really you. Jean Bingyun blushed, and no one knew if it was because she was poisoned or because she was shy. Wait a minute, I still have something to deal with. Song Qingshu noticed that Dan Yuru's situation was not looking good and wanted to go over to help, but he also noticed that Jean Bingyun was poisoned and her body was weak. Naturally, he did not feel at ease leaving her here. Therefore, he held her waist with one hand, and the two of them flew in front of Dan Yuru. Then, Sword Chi swept out, and the Mongolian warriors surrounding her were all killed. Leader Dan, fortunately, I'm not late. Prince Song. Dan Yuru was overjoyed to see him, but when she noticed that he was carrying Jean Bingyun, she could not help but feel jealous. She's poisoned. Help me take care of her. Song Qingshu noticed that Xiao Long, Nu, and the rest were unstoppable in the beginning, but as Jinluan Fuwang returned to defend, they were gradually surrounded by Boyan's experts. Although these Mongolian warriors did not have names, their skills were enough to make them the sect leader of a mid-tier sect. Otherwise, Dan Yuru and the rest would not have been besieged to such a sorry state. In addition, the Mongolian army cooperated very well, and even with the martial arts of Xiao Long, Nu, and the rest, they were having a hard time. In fact, it was easy to understand. If the leader of an army was so easily beheaded by experts, how could he be called a famous general? Noticing that Boyan's order was well organized and that waves of soldiers were surrounding the women, he did not dare to delay any longer, and he directly leaped into the air. Million returning swords. Now that the battlefield was full of weapons, it was the perfect place to use this technique. Actually, Million returning swords was not very useful against a great grandmaster, as its power was too scattered. However, the reason why it could be ranked as one of the two ultimate techniques alongside 23 swords was because of its strong ability to attack groups. On the battlefield or in a chaotic battle, it was a sharp weapon that could harvest the entire battlefield. Countless swords and sabers floated in the air and surrounded him, as if forming a pair of huge steel wings. As he moved, those flying swords and sabers turned anyone who dared to stand in his way into a cloud of blood mist. Originally, there were hundreds of Mongolian experts and thousands of Mongolian soldiers in the general's residence, but they were forcefully defeated by the flying swords that filled the sky. They covered their heads and fled in terror. Unlike the other girls who knew of Song Qingshu's martial arts, this was the first time the Fu sisters were witnessing it. Their eyes widened as they stared at the figure in midair and the swords that filled the sky. Shock and admiration filled their eyes. Even if Master was still alive, he wouldn't be able to suppress the entire battlefield when faced with so many Mongolian warriors. Fu Jinyi secretly compared Song Qingshu to her master and quickly came to a conclusion. Fu Junyu, on the other hand, grabbed her hand excitedly. Sister, he's even more powerful than the rumors say. Wow, he's so handsome. I'm almost falling in love with him. Fu Jinyi rolled her eyes. You're really easy to fall in love with someone else. Who was the one who couldn't get over Jiao Baoyu? That's not the same. Jiao Baoyu's feelings are those of helping each other through difficult times, but this person's feelings are those of admiration for the strong. Fu Junyu bit her lip. He's really too handsome. Fu Junyi could actually understand her sister's infatuated look. Even she was quite stunned by the scene in front of her. This man was really very handsome, but she still had some sense left in her. She noticed Jean Renjun, who was fleeing to the side, and quickly leapt up. She placed her sword across his neck. I didn't think that you'd be here too. I really didn't waste any time. Song Qing-shu had already landed in front of Bayan. Jin Luan Fuang wanted to stop him, but a ray of sword energy cut the golden wheel in his hand into two. He spat out a mouthful of blood and retreated. He couldn't help but be shocked. Is the difference between me and a grandmaster this big? Song Qing-shu said calmly, Jin Luan Fuang, you're already heavily injured. I know that you're not like Xiao Xiangzi and the others. You have a good character, so I won't take your life. Go back to Tantra Buddhism and pay your respects to Buddha. Don't step into Jianghu ever again. Jin Luan Fuang crawled up and bowed. Thank you, almsgiver Song, for fulfilling my wish. He turned around and staggered away. He had long been disheartened by this battle. He no longer had any desire to fight for supremacy in Jianghu. After dealing with Jin Luan Fuang, he looked at Bai Zizai. Master Bai, from now on, surrender to me. I'll let bygones be bygones. Bai Zizai laughed. Although my martial arts aren't as good as yours, I'm not a coward who's afraid of death. If you want to kill me, then kill me. Song Qing-shu sighed. To be honest, your Snow Mountain sect isn't worth my time. But I'm good friends with Xiao and your grandfather. That's why I'm giving you a chance. Xiao? Bai Zizai was stunned. He couldn't help but stare at him. You bullied Xiao? Song Qing-shu was speechless. What are you thinking? We're just friends. You have to think this through. Goryeo is thousands of miles away from the Snow Mountain sect. If you die here, Xiao will lose her grandfather, father, and martial uncles. She'll be very sad. Bai Zizai's face turned green and white. In the end, he said dejectedly, fine. For Xiao's sake, we'll surrender. But you have to promise to move the Snow Mountain sect to the Central Plains as soon as possible. Otherwise, we won't be able to withstand the Mongolians' revenge. Song Qing-shu laughed. Don't worry. The Mongolians have run out of luck this time. They won't have the strength to retaliate against you in the future. He remembered that not long after he arrived in this world, it was the Snow Mountain sect that came to break him out of the prison in Jingzhou City. He didn't expect that time would pass so quickly. After subduing the Snow Mountain sect, Song Qing-shu looked at Bayan and Lu Bingzhou. The two of them were separated by Xiao Longnu, who was standing in the middle with a sword in each hand. He looked at her holding the sword with both hands, which made her look even more graceful. He recalled the way she hugged him in the cave and the way she looked at him. For a moment, he couldn't help but feel love for her. Song, you openly oppose the Mongolians. Have you thought about the consequences? Bayan was a famous general after all. Even though he was captured, he didn't show the slightest bit of fear. This time, I'm here to settle the score with the Mongolians. Why would I be afraid of your threats? Song Qing-shu smiled. Lu Bingzhou's expression changed. You're planning to attack the Mongolian army at sea. Song Qing-shu was surprised. You're indeed the most capable subordinate of Kublai. You were able to guess my plan with just a few words. I'm impressed. Your plan won't succeed. The Mongolian army is invincible. Plus, there are tens of thousands of soldiers stationed in Korea. What can you do with just a few people? Bayan said angrily. Song Qing-shu smiled. You don't have to worry about that. Without you, they'll be without a leader. It'll be too easy to deal with them. At this time, the sounds of fighting could be heard from afar. It was clear that Li Shunshan had also received the signal from the Fu sisters and had begun to attack the city gate. Song Qing-shu sealed Bayan and the others' acupoints. Then he said to the Fu sisters, go to the city gate and help General Li and the others. Also, remember to be careful. Even though most of the Mongolian experts have died here, there's no guarantee that there won't be some who slipped through. Your safety is the most important. Fu Junyi was stunned and blushed. Thank you for your concern, young master. After the sisters left, Fu Junyi couldn't help but ask, Sister, could Prince Song be flirting with us? I don't think so. He already has someone like Miss Long. Fu Junyi recalled the way he looked at her. There seemed to be a lot of affection in his eyes, and the concern in his tone couldn't be faked. She couldn't be sure. Fu Junyu snorted. I feel that there's something special about this guy. He seems familiar. Fu Junyi couldn't help but laugh. You think he's handsome, right? He's Baoyu's friend. Don't let your imagination run wild. Sister, you said you didn't have any feelings for Baoyu. Are you supervising him and telling me to keep my chastity? Shut up, you talk too much. On the other side, Song Qingshu had Dan Yuru bring her subordinates and the people from the Snow Mountain sect to control the general's residence. Meanwhile, he brought Jean Bingyun to a quiet room to remove the poison from her body. Miss Jean, how did you end up like this? Logically speaking, these people wouldn't dare to touch you on account of the Devil Master. Song Qingshu couldn't help but ask. Hearing his words, Jean Bingyun couldn't help but cry. Master, he passed away. I feel like it's going to end in a few days. I suddenly feel a little reluctant. Chapter 25. Song Qingshu was shocked. Pang Ban was dead? He wanted to ask, but Jean Bingyun had already fainted because of being poisoned and being too excited. He hurriedly used his power and massaged the vital acupoints on her back, forcing the poison out of her body bit by bit. An hour later, Jean Bingyun finally woke up slowly. Sensing the majestic true qi in her body, she immediately knew that the other party was helping to force the poison out. She said in a low voice, "Thank you." Song Qingshu replied, "The poison in your body has been almost forced out. Although Xiaoxiangzi's poison is powerful, fortunately, it is not the kind of poison that kills the throat. Otherwise, I'm afraid you would have died." Jean Bingyun sighed. It's not a bad ending to see Master after dying. What happened to Pang Ban? Song Qingshu finally couldn't help but ask. Jean Bingyun slowly replied, "At that time, Brother Ollie died in a strange way. In addition, Fu Kalen also died mysteriously. Master had fought with Fu Kalen before, so he was very clear about Fu Kalen's martial arts. He knew that even if he was seriously injured, he was not someone an ordinary master could kill. Combining all the reasons, he suspected that there was a great master hiding in the dark. These days, he has been investigating this matter. Later, one day, he said that he went out to see someone and never came back. Song Qingshu couldn't help but say, this can only mean that he is missing. Why do you think he is dead? The whereabouts of a great master are always erratic, so it is normal to not be found for a period of time. Jean Bingyun slowly shook her head. I know that something must have happened to him. I have been searching along the path he took that day, and finally found his body under a cliff. Before she finished speaking, tears streamed down her face. Song Qingshu exclaimed, can you see how he died? At first, he even suspected that Pang Ban was faking his death in order to practice the Tao Heart Seed Demon, but the body was found, and it was obviously cold. Jean Bingyun replied, it's very cold here in Korea, and it's been snowing for those days, so when I found his body that day, it was still in good condition. However, I couldn't see any external injuries. Someone must have severely injured his heart meridian and killed him. Song Qingshu was taken aback. With the evil master's cultivation, even though he and Fu Kalen were both injured, he is still not someone that ordinary experts can deal with. Not to mention ordinary experts, even a few Grandmaster experts might not be able to deal with an injured great Grandmaster. Yes, so Master's suspicion back then was reasonable. There is indeed a great Grandmaster hiding in the dark, Jean Bingyun said. Song Qingshu couldn't help but say, didn't you suspect me when you saw that I was also in Korea? Jean Bingyun glanced at him and shook her head. Given Prince Song's character, he would naturally not do such a thing. If you really want to deal with my master, you can come to him directly. Song Qingshu sighed. I didn't expect you to have such a high opinion of me. Jean Bingyun blushed slightly and hurriedly changed the topic. All right, I also discovered something strange. What? Song Qingshu asked. My master's cultivation technique allows his skin to be as translucent as jade. Even if he passes away, it should not rot for 3 months. However, when I found my master's body last time, I found that his skin was no longer as translucent as it usually was. Instead, it had become shriveled and dull. Not only that, Jean Bingyun continued, my master's long, pitch-black hair is something that even I envy, but this time, I found that some of his hair had turned a little white. Star-absorbing great technique. Song Qing-shu blurted out. What? Jean Bingyun frowned. I have heard of the star-absorbing great technique, but forgive me for being blunt. With the Rin sect leader's cultivation, I'm afraid it would be very difficult for him to use this technique on my master. Song Qing-shu shook his head. It's not sect leader Rin. It's another person, venerated Ming, Zhang Wuji. It was difficult to explain to her about venerated Ming's possession, so he simply told her about both of them together. At the same time, he also told her about how venerated Ming had plotted against Tongtian Shaman. He really didn't expect that when he gave the star-absorbing great technique to venerated Ming to dissolve the innate sword qi in his body, he actually didn't have any good intentions. Firstly, it was to dissolve the vast and majestic nine-yang genuine qi in his body. Secondly, it was to tamper with the incantation so that venerated Ming wouldn't be able to do human things again. Who knew that venerated Ming would play with this incomplete version of the star-absorbing great technique? First, he had absorbed Tongtian Shaman's inner energy, and now he had absorbed Pang Ban's inner energy as well. Moreover, Fu Kalin's mysterious death was most likely also absorbed by him. In total, he had absorbed the inner energy of 3 great grandmasters. In addition to the inner energy of the experts he had absorbed previously, how terrifying was the current venerated Ming's inner energy? It's actually him. After listening to his story, Jean Bingyun bit her lip so hard that it almost bled. Song Qing-shu hurriedly said, Miss Jean, don't be rash and think about revenge. With his current cultivation, even a great grandmaster would be in danger, let alone you. But since I was young, it was Master who raised me up and taught me martial arts. I owe him a great debt of gratitude. If I don't take revenge, how can I face him? Jean Bingyun gripped her sword tightly, but she also understood that her chances of revenge were too slim. Song Qing-shu couldn't help but curse silently. This Pang Ban was a lullicon. He raised a female disciple and ended up falling in love with her. He even planned to use her as a demonic medium to refine his Taoist heart. There was also the green slave attribute. For this period of time, you will stay by my side. Leave venerated Ming to me. Song Qing-shu thought about Jean Bingyun's status and popularity in the Devil's Palace. Coupled with her familiarity with Mongolia, there would be many things that would require her help in the future. Jean Bingyun was indeed startled when she heard his words. Then, a faint blush appeared on her snow-white cheeks. She said softly, as long as young master can help me take revenge, I will listen to young master's orders from now on. Song Qing-shu smiled bitterly and said, Miss Jean, you have misunderstood. I am not taking advantage of you, and it is not mainly to take revenge for you. It is because venerated Ming and I have an irreconcilable hatred. In the end, there will definitely be a battle. If you stay by my side, you can help me a little. This is called taking what we need. You don't have to be grateful for this. Jean Bingyun's beautiful starry eyes looked at him quietly. Gradually, there was something different in her eyes. Prince Song, you really are a gentleman. Song Qing-shu couldn't help but laugh. Many people will laugh if they hear this. How can I be considered a gentleman? Jean Bingyun shook her head. No, it is just that those people misunderstood you. Song Qing-shu laughed. All right, to be able to receive such an evaluation from Miss Jean is enough to make me happy. Your poison is more or less neutralized. Have a good rest first. I still have to go out and deal with the mess outside. Just as he was about to get up, he was held back by Jean Bingyun. He couldn't help but be stunned. His gaze fell on her snow-white wrist. Jean Bingyun pursed her lips and said softly, I still have one more thing to ask you. Miss Jean, please speak. Are you confident that you can defeat venerated Ming? Song Qing-shu thought for a moment and said, Originally, I was very confident. However, after knowing that he had absorbed the powers of 3 great grandmasters, I am also a little uncertain. Jin Bingyin was even less confident. In her opinion, Song Qing-shu had almost died when he had faced 3 great grandmasters in Helen City. Now, that venerated Ming had combined the powers of 4 great grandmasters into one. How could he possibly win by himself? Her face alternated between red and white. It was obvious that she had experienced an intense psychological struggle. She then said, "Prince Song, do you know about the Great Heart Seed Demon Technique?" Song Qing-shu couldn't help but laugh. "Of course I know. That's why I was very wary of you before. It's mainly because you are too beautiful. I was afraid that I wouldn't be able to control myself." Jin Bingyun's face turned red. It was obvious that she was also a little embarrassed. She continued to say, "Actually, people only know about the Tao Heart Seed Demon Technique. However, they don't know that there is also the Demon Heart Seed Demon Technique. The former is to use the other party as a furnace and absorb all of the other party's powers and essence for one's own use. The latter is to use oneself as a furnace and contribute one's powers and essence to the other party. It's just that most people in the Sacred Gate are selfish. For thousands of years, no one would do something like this to benefit others." Song Qing-shu was stunned. "Why are you telling me this, Miss Jean? Now that the Devil Master is dead, all of this is gone, isn't it?" Jin Bingyun's face turned even redder. "Although the honored master has passed away, the demon seed that I have been cultivating for over 10 years is still there. I can use the second method to transform it into a Tao embryo and give it to you. Although it can't reach the level of giving you all of the Devil Master's powers, it is enough to greatly increase the level of your powers. At that time, you will have more confidence in dealing with revered Ming." Song Qing-shu was suddenly enlightened, and a faint smile appeared on his face. "How should I give this embryo of Tao to him?" Jin Bingyin took a deep breath. Suddenly, she untied her belt with her slender hands. Her long dress slid down from her smooth and snow-white skin as if there was nothing holding it back. It revealed the body of the saint lady that countless people in Mongolia yearned for day and night. Then, she slowly walked up to him with a red face. She stood on her tiptoes and kissed him softly. A playful look appeared in Song Qing-shu's eyes. He could have pushed her away, but after thinking about it, he decided not to. He wanted to use this matter to verify whether what she said was true or not. Regardless of whether Pang Ban was dead or revered Ming had used the Absorbing Star's great technique to absorb his powers, these were just Jin Bingyun's one-sided story. Without seeing Pang Ban's corpse with his own eyes, he had enough reason to suspect that this was a trap set up by Pang Ban. Because he knew about the existence of the Tao Heart Demon Seed, under normal circumstances, the plan of the honored master and his disciple would not succeed. Therefore, it was indeed easier for them to use this trick to lure him into the trap. If Pang Ban was really hiding in the dark, it would be troublesome. An enemy who was hiding in the dark was much more dangerous than an enemy who was out in the open. Right now, Song Qing-shu had to deal with the Mongolian fleet. He did not have the time and energy to investigate this matter. The best way was to jump into their trap. After the two of them merged their spiritual desires, he would be able to find out whether Jin Bingyun was lying to him. As for the danger of his Tao heart becoming a demon, he did not care about it at all. After all, the demon sect had always wanted to break through the void and become an immortal. The Tao heart demon seed was just one of the experiments. How could it compare to the Plain Lady Sutra that was personally taught by a real immortal? At that time, if Pang Ban really wanted to use this technique to absorb all of his powers, it was hard to say who would be the one to absorb who. Therefore, when Jin Bingyun threw herself into his arms, Song Qing-shu did not reject her. He directly wrapped his arms around her soft and smooth waist and pulled her into his arms. Jin Bingyun's heart raced, but she endured it. She followed the records of the demon sect's secret manual and completely offered her body to him. With a soft cry, the two of them became one. Song Qing-shu noticed that Jin Bingyun's body was much colder than a normal woman's. Xiao Longnu's skin was usually cold enough, but the inside of her body was still warm, while Jin Bingyun's body was cold from the outside to the inside. If it were a normal man, He might not be able to take it anymore and hand over his spear and surrender. But right now, Song Qingshu was not a normal man. Soon, he felt wisps of coolness enter his body from her body. He could clearly feel all the meridians in his body seemed to be cheering. Even though the effect was not as good as when he was with the Empyrean Fairy, it could still be said to be outstanding. After some time, he felt that there was no longer a trace of coolness in Jean Bingyun's body, and her whole body became hotter and hotter. He finally understood that she did not lie to him. Apart from feeling guilty, his actions also became much gentler and more loving. After some time, Jean Bingyun, whose eyes were filled with tears, used great strength to support her limp body from his arms. She blushed and said in a trembling voice, "We've been inside for too long. There are so many people waiting outside. It's not good for us." Song Qingshu felt that the Jinqi in his body had become more majestic. He knew that it was the effect of her Taoist fetus's nourishment. He could not help but feel pity for her. He kissed her gently and said, "I'll come to find you at night." Jean Bingyun grunted. All these years, her body had been very cold. It had never been as warm and comfortable as it was just now. There was even a moment when she felt that she had lived all these years in vain. As a result, she, who had always been cold, also looked forward to the night. After that, Song Qingshu went out to clean up the mess. The leaders, Bayan, Lu Bingzhong, and Jin Renjun, were captured. The Mongolian soldiers in Kai Jing and the Goryeo puppet army were like dragons without a leader. They were quickly controlled. After that, Song Qingshu directly used the soul transfer technique to interrogate Bayan and Lu Bingzhong about some Mongolian military and political secrets. He had a clear understanding of the Mongolian military movements. Not long after, Ajio and the others arrived with the Allied fleet. With this new force, together with the Fu sisters and Yi Sunshun, they quickly controlled the entire territory of Goryeo. The next step was to use the Navy to blockade the Strait of Tsushima and the waters of Japan, completely cutting off the route of retreat of the Mongolian army. I've said this before on the official account, but I don't know if I've said in the main text, because some of the unimportant female characters are not suitable to appear in the current plot. I'll add some side chapters for them on the official account after the end of the novel. Other popular characters will definitely have their own side chapters, so don't feel disappointed that you didn't see some people in the finale. Next, I'll announce the official account, Monk Lu Ru. Those who haven't added, you can add them. Chapter 25-26. They sent out all sorts of scouts and gradually learned about the situation of the Mongolian expedition to Dongying. It turned out that the Mongolians had landed twice. During the first landing, they were fiercely blocked by Dongying. This was because Dongying had just experienced the Warring States period of 100 years, and Tosei Hideyoshi had unified the country. In terms of combat power, both the quality of the generals and the combat power of the soldiers were quite elite. In the beginning, they waited for the enemy to exhaust themselves and built a very stable line of defense. The Mongolian and Goryeo allied forces suffered heavy losses during the first landing. Even the imperial tutor, Ba Siba, died in the chaos. However, this time, the Mongolians came in full force, and, with the help of the Goryeo Navy, they regrouped and started the second landing. After paying a heavy price, they finally succeeded. Once they got ashore, the advantage of the Mongolian cavalry was displayed. The Dongying army that was fighting evenly finally couldn't hold on any longer and started to retreat. Toyosi Hideyoshi's main force was repeatedly attacked by the Mongolian cavalry and finally couldn't hold on any longer and was completely defeated. In the next few days, the two sides engaged in a series of battles. Toyosi Hideyoshi's main force was completely wiped out, and even he himself died on the battlefield. Dongying had just experienced 100 years of war. After Toyosi Hideyoshi unified the country, the internal situation was already quite unstable. Now that he was dead and his main force was almost wiped out, the other ambitious people naturally couldn't hold back and all betrayed the Toyosi family. Among them, Oda Nobunaga was the most influential. Oda Nobunaga contacted the Mongols and surrendered to them. At this time, the Mongols also knew about the changes in Korea and did not have the energy to slowly conquer Japan. Thus, they agreed to Oda Nobunaga's surrender and supported him as the spokesperson of the Mongols in Japan. Kublai led the Mongolian main force back to Goryeo. Unfortunately, Song Qingshu had already taken control of all of Goryeo. He led various allied naval forces to block the Mongolian fleet at the Strait of Tsushima, preventing them from breaking through the blockade and getting close to land. Of course, the Mongolian army was huge, and with the help of Oda Nobunaga and the Japanese Navy, it was difficult for Song Qingshu to defeat them. The situation became very tense. During this period of time, Song Qingshu had been waiting for Huang Yaoshi to observe the wind. Finally, Huang Yaoshi predicted that there would be a storm one day, so Song Qingshu calculated the time and retreated the fleet in advance. The Mongolian army saw that the blockade that had been bothering them for many days was gone and were overjoyed. They rushed towards Goryeo, afraid that Song Qingshu's fleet would suddenly appear. It had to be pointed out that Song Qingshu almost couldn't handle the storm even though he was a grandmaster, let alone these normal people of the Mongolian army who couldn't even swim. After the storm that had been like this for decades, all of the Mongolian battleships either hit the rocks or sunk. Some of them were stranded near the shore, and the vast army had completely disappeared. Only a few of the high-ranking generals' ships managed to get on land. Unfortunately, as soon as they got on land, they were surrounded by Song Qingshu's army that had been lying in ambush. Both sides engaged in an intense battle. Song Qingshu led his people and charged towards Kublai and the other leaders. At this point, he didn't want to let any of them escape. However, the strength of Kublai's personal army was not to be underestimated. In addition, there was a large group of experts accompanying them, so they were still very strong. Therefore, Song Qingshu had to personally deal with them. During this period of time, Song Qingshu had already recognized the experts by Kublai's side. They were all old acquaintances. There was the Tantric sex expert led by Yang Lianjin, the 12 Treasure Tree Kings led by the Old Man in the Mountain, the leader of the Vajra sect, and Taoist Baisang who had joined them from the Ryong Palace were also there. The Xianming elders seemed to have already died at the bottom of the sea, and there were also some Japanese warriors. At this moment, the group of people had already been forced into a dead end. Kublai said angrily, "Song, how dare you sneak attack the Mongolian army? Aren't you afraid of our revenge?" Song Qingshu smiled slightly. After this battle, the Mongolian army has already lost more than half of its main force. How can it still be strong? The faces of the Mongolians all darkened, but they all knew that what he said was the truth. Song Qingshu looked at the Old Man in the Mountain and asked curiously, "Huashan, where did venerated Ming go? How come I haven't seen him?" Huashan said coldly, "What venerated Ming? I don't know what you're talking about." Song Qingshu frowned. He didn't know if Huashan was worried that the Mongolians would find out about venerated Ming's identity, or if he was trying to hide it from him. Venerated Ming hiding in the dark was quite troublesome. But now, he could only deal with Kublai's group first. He looked at the people in the mountain and said, "Kublai, I respect you as a hero. If you choose to commit suicide, I can let you die without bleeding." The Mongolians had a tradition. If they bled when they died, they wouldn't be able to enter the reincarnation cycle. Therefore, when they treated enemies that were worthy of respect, they would let them die without bleeding. Kublai laughed. The Mongolians never surrender. If you want to fight, then fight. Why do you have to talk so much? If that's the case, then don't blame me for being merciless. Song Qingshu calmly said. He waved his hand and gave the order to attack, while he directly headed towards Kublai. The Mongolian warriors along the way couldn't even take one hit from him. Just as he was about to reach Kublai, two sharp sword energies suddenly came from the side, one in front of the other behind him. The timing was perfect, the angle was tricky, and the coordination was perfect. It really was hard to defend against. "Grandmaster!" Many people on Song Qingshu's side cried out in shock. They didn't expect that there would suddenly be grandmasters among the Japanese warriors, and two of them at that. Previously, these people had been fighting for so long, but they hadn't shown any of them. Song Qingshu's expression was also solemn. He flicked his finger and waved his sleeve, finally dodging the attack by a hair's breadth. Once he landed, he looked at his sleeve that had been cut open and looked at the two Japanese experts. Wizumi Tsunonobu, Tsukisahara Buchuan. The Shueiwa sect was ranked third among the Japanese experts, and there were two people above him. They were the two famous sword saints in Japanese history, Wizumi Tsunonobu and Tsukisahara Buchuan. The two people in front of him were completely Japanese, and their sword techniques were so high. Who else could it be other than them? Sir, you actually know our names. Wizumi Tsunonobu was a little surprised. On the other side, Tsukisahara Buchuan said, "You were able to escape from Wizumi in my sneak attack, as expected of the strongest person in China." The Japanese were deeply influenced by Chinese culture, and people in the upper echelons like them were proficient in sinology, so they had no problem communicating. Song Qingshu smiled slightly. "I'm surprised that you were able to sneak attack us so openly." Wizumi Tsunonobu sighed. "Given our identities, we usually don't want to join forces to fight against enemies, let alone sneak attacks. However, we have no choice now. I hope you can forgive us." Not far away, Kublai laughed out loud. You didn't expect this, did you? Song Qingshu, how does it feel like the hunter has become the prey? I'm afraid it won't be so easy to change who is the hunter and who is the prey." Although Song Qingshu said this, he couldn't help but admire Kublai. As expected of a formidable person, he was actually able to set up such a killing trap in such a hurry despite being at an absolute disadvantage. One must know that he didn't let the two sword saints reveal their strength in the previous battle. He used himself as bait to lure Song Qingshu into the trap. Sword saints, as long as you successfully kill him, I'll let all the Japanese return. Moreover, Mongolia will be on good terms with Japan for generations to come. At the same time, I'll give Korea to Japan," Kublai said in a low voice. The two sword saints' eyes lit up. They then looked at Song Qingshu. Song Sansari. No matter if it was for the country or for the people, they had to give it their all this time. The two of them attacked Song Qingshu from the left and right. At that moment, something strange happened. Sect Master Vajra and Taoist priest Baisheng suddenly turned around and killed Kublai's personal guards. They held on to Kublai from both sides and laughed loudly. "Prince Song, we've done you such a great service this time. How are you going to repay us?" The two of them had been poisoned by Song Qingshu's 3-corpse brain divine pill, so they had been looking for a chance to turn around. Now, they finally found the perfect opportunity. Kublai's guards were extremely weak. Unfortunately, before Song Qingshu could reply, Sect Master Vajra felt an intense pain in his chest. He looked down in shock and found that his indestructible body had been pierced by Kublai's hand. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.